What? In the silent barren hills, there was a roar. Jimmy. What's wrong with you? The sudden scream made Victor, who had been in a light sleep, jump up immediately. He hurriedly came in front of Jimmy. Victor still cared about his younger brother, Jimmy, who was suspected to be his own younger brother. Most importantly, Jimmy and himself were of the same kind. What? Although Victor cared about his younger brother very much, Victor's concern did not receive any response. Jimmy was still screaming, and a pair of bone claws had been exposed, leaving messy scratches on the dirt under him. Of course, I also left a lot of scratches on my body. Although the scratches on the body were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye, the pain caused by the scratches made the screams even more intense. Animals around the Rocky Mountains seemed to be scared away. Seeing Jimmy rolling all over the ground in front of him, Victor swallowed and silently stepped back a few steps. Victor's recovery ability is also very strong, even much better than Jimmy's. However, Victor doesn't think that after being slapped twice, he will desperately. Victor really doesn't think he has a good temper, and he seems to be getting more and more irritable recently. Li Ji had never experienced such pain before. It felt as if his whole body had been ground up and put into a container. Moreover, there are still some memories in my mind. James? Victor? Dark bedroom? What's the situation? Isn't Victor a saber-toothed tiger? There was no time for Li Ji to think, and the severe pain made Li Ji almost collapse. Li Ji swears that he will never stop changing again. Isn't it just playing games for a few days and watching movies for a few days? Finally, Li Ji fainted from the severe pain. Seeing that Jimmy, who was constantly tossing, finally calmed down, Victor heaved a sigh of relief. It finally subsided, but Victor didn't go up to see what was going on with Jimmy. Because, now, Victor had the first danger of his first night in the Rockies. The nails began to grow slowly, and Victor, who was only a teenager, had not received formal training. However, the beast instinct deep in his blood made Victor subconsciously make the most offensive posture. Jimmy's cry was terrifying, and most animals were basically scared away. However, there are some animals that will not be scared away, such as the wolf in front of you. The wolf's howl was not loud, but it was very deep, which also put a lot of pressure on Victor. With a slightly bowed body, Victor swallowed a mouthful of saliva with difficulty, and didn't wait any longer. He jumped up vigorously under his feet and rushed towards the strongest canine animal. Roar. What? In the early morning, there was some mist in the Rocky Mountains, and a drop of mist fell on the tip of Li Ji's nose. Forehead. The heavy eyelids slowly opened. In fact, Li Ji still wanted to sleep for a while. Li Ji during the breakup period only woke up at 6, 7, or even 11, 12, noon every day. It's obviously not time now, not to mention that the severe pain caused Li Ji no less exhaustion than overnight. However, the wet feeling made Li Ji reluctantly open his eyes, and he couldn't sleep. Opening his eyes, a reluctant voice came out of his mouth, and he looked around in a daze. Li Ji's original drowsiness completely disappeared at this moment. Looking at the environment in front of him, Li Ji was completely bewildered. The surrounding environment is beautiful, with luxuriant foliage and lush greenery. However, this is not the environment Li Ji wants. Who am I? Where am I? What do I need to do? Li Ji was dumbfounded. Jimmy, are you awake? Suddenly, a voice appeared, and Li Ji turned his head subconsciously. A foreign young lady in tattered clothes with a lot of bloodstains was looking at him. So, my name is Jimmy, isn't it? It's okay, it's okay. Oh, that's good, you don't know, your yelling yesterday attracted a big guy. Victor gave Jimmy a strange look, but he didn't say much. After going through such pain, no matter who it is, his personality will change, right? But I don't know if it was an illusion. Victor felt that the lines of Jimmy's face had softened a lot. So, after awakening the ability, will even the external image be changed? Poor Jimmy. So, this. Li Ji, or rather, Jimmy only discovered now that beside this stranger, there was a wolf. A dead wolf. Yes, his claws are not as sharp as mine. Although it is very powerful, it is obvious that I won. Victor was very satisfied with Jimmy's shocked tone. Looking at Jimmy in front of him, Victor said with a proud face. But now, we need to leave quickly, otherwise the smell of blood will attract more big guys. My brother. Victor's smug expression didn't last too long. He explained very quickly, took Jimmy's hand and ran out to the distance. So, I am your brother. This run lasted all morning, and during the running process, Jimmy was constantly adapting to this body. The first is the sense of smell. Even after running far away, Jimmy can still smell the familiar smell of blood. Moreover, for some reason, Jimmy felt a little itchy in his hands, and there seemed to be something inside that could be stretched out. After running for a whole morning, Jimmy and Victor sat on a small mound a little out of breath. Judging from the degree of their breathlessness, Jimmy feels that his stamina may be much stronger than that of his brother. Moreover, even here, Jimmy can even feel the vague smell of blood, so, this body belongs to a dog, right? Trying to calm down his panting body, Jimmy raised his hands to his eyes. With a slight movement of his mind, a pair of bone claws stretched out from the back of his hand. Hi, it hurts. I can feel that each bone spur in this pair of bone claws can be controlled by myself. Lowering his head and seeing the red dress he was wearing, Jimmy felt an ominous premonition in his heart. Raising his head, Jimmy tentatively called out to his brother who was panting heavily. Victor. Huh? What's the matter, Jimmy? Victor opened his eyes with some difficulty. The wild running all the way made Victor feel extremely uncomfortable. The problem of insufficient endurance of cats is undoubtedly revealed at this moment. Although Victor is a human and not a cat, he, who will be known as a saber-toothed tiger in the future, is similar to a cat in terms of strengthening direction and attacking methods. What's more, Victor killed a tiger yesterday. Although Victor didn't die by virtue of his super resilience, he was exhausted enough. Therefore, today's Victor can't even compare to this younger brother who is 3 years younger than him. You pant like a dog. Seeing the young man in front of him turn his head directly when he heard his voice, Jimmy was taken aback for a moment, and subconsciously clenched his right hand in front of his eyes. A bone spur in the middle slowly extended from the back of Jimmy's hand. A tingling pain traveled along the nerves to Jimmy's mind, giving Jimmy the feeling of being bitten by a mosquito. In fact, the feeling of bone spurs penetrating the skin is particularly painful. But this, for having just experienced how, is no less painful than what the future Wolverine would experience when he was transplanted into Mandrake metal. This little pain is nothing. It may be exaggerated to say that it is a mosquito bite, but it is really nothing. Jimmy, after rolling all night last night, your recovery ability is stronger? Victor's eyes narrowed slightly, he strengthened his energy, calmed down his breath, the sharp nails on his right hand slowly lengthened, and looked at Jimmy in front of him meaningfully. Yesterday, Victor relied on this, the tiger that was torn by hand. Although, Victor was torn about the same. However, there is a self-healing factor in Victor's body, but Tiger's body obviously does not. Brother, I was wrong. Jimmy is very cowardly. And at the same time, Himalayas, Karma-Taj, Tower of the Supreme Master. A long golden river flows in front of a bald head. After a long time, the bald head raised his head and walked to the side of a spherical object emitting a faint light. His deep eyes seemed to have seen Jimmy far away in the Rocky Mountains. Acknowledgement? Victor slowly stood up from the ground. Looking at Jimmy in front of him, Victor felt that he had to maintain his dignity as a big brother now. No, Victor, listen to me, it was just a joke just now, don't take it seriously, although you look like you are panting heavily, but you look really beautiful when you stand up. Seeing this, Jimmy stood up quickly and kept walking backwards. In the final analysis, before, Jimmy was nothing more than a street rider. Facing this ruthless man who just slaughtered a tiger, Jimmy couldn't be tough no matter what. The way you beg for mercy is really embarrassing, but the way you gloated before was cool, wasn't it? Victor looked at Jimmy in front of him with a smile on his face, and the smile on his face gradually turned into a joke, cruel. Victor's awakening time was much earlier than Jimmy's, and his strength was much stronger, but it also meant that Victor was more deeply influenced by the beast's instinct. What it shows is that it is more irritable and cruel. The sharp claws were ready, and Victor jumped on Jimmy without the slightest preparation. Jimmy froze for a moment, before he had time to react, his body had already reacted. The bone claws stretched out quickly and pierced into Victor's shoulder in an instant. Of course, Victor's claws also pierced Jimmy's stomach fiercely. After a long time, Victor leaned on a dirt slope and continued to breathe heavily. A pair of very symmetrical wounds appeared on his fair face, but the wounds were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. And Jimmy on one side is similar, but relatively speaking, Jimmy's condition is better. After the previous battles, Jimmy already had a little understanding of his own strength. Simply put, there is no strength. Whether it is strength, speed or reaction, Jimmy feels that he is a bit behind Victor. Only endurance is stronger than Victor, and this battle ended after Victor exhausted his strength. Glancing at Victor who seemed to be out of strength beside him, Jimmy didn't mean to take advantage of his illness to kill him. As far as Jimmy knew, in the original time and space, the two brothers had been entangled for a lifetime until no one killed the other in the end. The self-healing factor is not only abnormal, but also disgusting. According to the classification of the original time and space, Magneto is the 4th level magnetic field control, Professor X is the 4th level telepathy, then Wolverine is the 4th level self-healing factor. It doesn't have much attack power, but it has a particularly disgusting ability. The most disgusting thing is that at this point in time, you still have your own identity. Really, who is not good to time travel? Do you have to time travel to Wolverine? Look at this body, it just ran out from that big manor. Really are. Jimmy in his previous life had seen Wolverine, so he naturally knew the background of that era. Wolverine now he is at most 11 or 12 years old. Let's say you were 12 years old, so now whether it's X-Men or Marvel, the earliest plot is the end of World War E. And now it's still 70 years before World War I. 70 years. Among the Earthlings in the Avengers, the oldest American team has not yet been born. The movie was done very well. A few shots passed in a flash, and the time came directly to the 21st century, where I met Stryker, Magneto, and Little Rascal. But in practice, at least 100 years from now. In the middle there is Apocalypse, the Hellfire Club. There are still 110 years left before the first battle. 110. What is the concept of 4 years? In ancient times, one could watch the rise and fall of a dynasty. Moreover, the most important thing is the identity of Wolverine. Mutant. It is true that the self-healing factor is against the sky, allowing Jimmy to live to the end. However, it doesn't have any offensive power. Without adamantium, the word Wolverine can only occupy wolf. I don't know if there is a reunion, but in the background of the X-Men, Jimmy without Mandela metal, the aggressiveness is almost equal to no. As for Jimmy, obviously he doesn't want to transplant the Mandela metal. After transplanting that thing, he doesn't have to fight when he meets Magneto. But how would Jimmy survive without a Mandela metal transplant? This is the background of a world where mutants are ridiculed. Looking up at the sun in the sky, Jimmy's heart has never been so desperate. Pulling back his cranky spirit, Jimmy felt very hungry now. Jimmy knew that this was a normal physiological reaction. This body hadn't eaten since yesterday or even since entering the Rocky Mountains. After experiencing so much physical exertion, Jimmy, who was already in the stage of physical development, felt that hunger was nothing more than normal. However, Jimmy is no longer the little master of the manor. Now Jimmy is just a 12-year-old mutant living in the desolate Rocky Mountains. There is nothing, even because of the end of autumn, there are not even a few wild fruits. Jimmy knows that he has a strong ability to survive. Even if he is beaten into a sieve, as long as he has enough time, he can slowly heal himself. However, Jimmy is not sure whether he will starve to death. Victor, are you hungry? Jimmy turned his head to look at Victor beside him. Although he was beaten up just now, Jimmy can only turn to Victor for help now. Otherwise, although Jimmy is a mutant, he is only 11 or 12 years old, and now he has no ability to survive independently. Especially in the wilderness. I'm a little hungry, go catch some prey. Victor heard the words and said without the slightest hesitation. I brought some tiger meat with me before I knew it. But we still need some water. Victor shook his head and said with some annoyance. Even if Jimmy didn't mention it, Victor was going to hunt his prey. After this torment, Victor definitely lost a lot more energy than Jimmy. But now, Victor needs to seize the time to hunt while he still has some physical strength. However, Victor also clearly understood that if he wanted to survive in such a wilderness, it was impossible to survive only on food. Listen, Jimmy, we need an environment suitable for survival first, so, besides those claws made of bones, do you have any other abilities? My sense of smell should be pretty good. In fact, I can still smell the tiger. Of course, there may be other abilities that I don't know about. Logan looked at the brother in front of him. To be honest, Jimmy had a good feeling for this brother at first. After all, he was the first person I met when I traveled over time. However, this trace of goodwill has completely disappeared in the beating just now. Hearing Jimmy's words, Victor had an obvious smile on his face. Okay, brother, your ability is quite good. Now try it, can you smell the fishy smell of salmon? Okay, I'll try. Jimmy was a little ashamed for a moment. To be honest, Jimmy had never eaten salmon. Maybe this body had, but Jimmy obviously did not receive the memory of this body. So, Jimmy doesn't know what salmon tastes like, but Jimmy in his previous life has been to the seafood market, so it should be similar, right? Push away Victor beside him. To be honest, the smell on Victor is too strong. Generally, it's better, but when you carefully distinguish the smell on this guy can choke people alive. Victor was not annoyed when he saw this, and just sat and watched Jimmy play. The main reason for looking for salmon is the water source. Where there are fish, there must be water, and where there is water, there are not only fish. Not to mention the high value of water itself. Therefore, setting up a camp should at least be next to a water source. At the very least, not too far from the water source. Closing his eyes, his mind was immediately focused on his nose, and a vague fishy smell appeared in Jimmy's nose. Probably in that direction. Jimmy slowly opened his eyes, stretched out his hand and pointed forward. "Okay, brother, let's go." Victor heard the words and rushed forward first. And Jimmy followed behind Jimmy. In such a dangerous place in the wild, it is obviously a very happy thing to have someone willing to open the way. Along the way, there were some predators running out on the road, but neither Victor nor Jimmy intended to fight, and if there was no fight, there would be no fight. If it really doesn't work, the two of them will fight together, with claws and bone spurs, and in a state of fearlessness, the two will often be able to deal with an enemy very quickly. Under such circumstances, the two soon came to a freshwater lake. At this time, the sun was about to set. The freshwater lake that spreads for an unknown number of miles exudes a faint light under the swagger of the setting sun, and even in the hearts of Jimmy and Victor, it lights up the light of life. Without the slightest hesitation, the two brothers ran to the lake and drank heavily. After running for a whole afternoon, the throats of the two of them were about to burst into smoke. After drinking almost, Jimmy leaned against a big tree by the lake and had time to look at the surrounding environment. Around this freshwater lake, there are many large and small mountain peaks. Sitting by the lake and looking around, there are all mountain peaks as far as the eye can see. There are countless trees by the lake, probably because of the season. The ground is covered with a thick layer of fallen leaves. As a price, the originally lush trees now only have branches left, and only some sparse leaves are left to cling to the trunk firmly. And this also provides Jimmy and Victor with a good view. "Victor, I smell a brown bear." Jimmy leaned against a huge tree. Thanks to the season, at this time, the brown bears should have begun to hibernate. Therefore, at that time, there may be a chance for the two of them to take advantage of. Go. Victor obviously knew the benefits of this, and without the slightest hesitation, he got up and wanted to go up. "Victor, I think we should replenish our strength before engaging in brown bears." While talking, Jimmy walked towards the lake and plunged in without hesitation. After a while, Jimmy came up with a fish in his hand. The lake water at the end of autumn is still a little cold, but it's just cold. Without the worry of being frostbitten, Ren passed away. Moreover, although I don't want to admit it, I have to say that although this body is only 12 years old, it has completely exploded the puffy body of my previous life. Maybe, this is also the reason why mutants are being targeted. "Oh, Jimmy. You're awesome." Victor was obviously very happy, grabbed Jimmy out of the water, and started cooking. Sashimi, a very simple dish, but it is very suitable for the wild. After a simple meal, Jimmy and Victor's physical strength recovered somewhat. It has to be said here that mutants are very different from Kunlun Qigong masters and Karma-Taj mages. Whether it is a Qigong master or a Karma-Taj mage, they all rely on themselves to accumulate energy bit by bit. Only after the energy has been accumulated to a certain level can the ability be activated. Mutants are different. The abilities of mutants are innate, and this ability is like an extension of the mutant's body. Therefore, when mutants activate their abilities, what they consume is physical strength, and, of course, mutants don't have any so-called energy in their bodies. Relatively speaking, mutants are still a very perverted group. However, mutants also have an aspect they are not sure about. For example, the awakening of abilities is random. Some will awaken energy absorption, the self-healing factor, the ability to make people immortal. There are also particularly powerful combat skills such as magnetic field control, telepathy, and teleportation. But more are some useless abilities. Therefore, although the mutants are very strong, they still look at their faces more. After a brief rest, Jimmy and Victor walked toward the cave while it was still dark. It's the end of autumn now. If we don't get a suitable living environment before winter comes, then this winter will be difficult to pass. The two of them leaned on both sides of the cave. The closer they got to the cave, the deeper the heart palpitations felt in Jimmy's heart. Jimmy knew that this should be the so-called beast instinct. The bone spur on his hand began to slowly extend outward. Still, Jimmy resisted the urge. As for the beast instinct, it may be necessary to obey in the end, but for now, what Jimmy needs to do is to resist. Facing a bear and 2.5-year-old children, just rushing in like this, there is no doubt that they are delivering food. Therefore, Jimmy needs to use his clever brain to find a solution that is not so painful. However, the first step is to restrain this damn urge. I didn't feel anything before, but now Jimmy has discovered that this beast instinct has completely penetrated into his character. It won't confuse you like a demon, but it can subtly change your character. The soul that Jimmy traveled through is constantly subtly changing this body. However, this body is also changing Jimmy's soul in reverse. Change is always a two-way street. Therefore, rather than saying that Jimmy is restraining the instinct of the beast now, it is better to say that Jimmy is constantly restraining his inner impulse. Allow yourself to calm down and use the strongest weapon that human beings can stand at the top of the food chain, the brain. This bear can give itself such a strong sense of danger, presumably it is an adult bear. If it is steel on the front, then it will definitely not work. In the end, although you can definitely win, you will definitely have to pay the price in blood. But now that the bear is hibernating, it can sneak in quietly. Make an initial move, say a claw into the bear's neck. The body structure of a bear may be different from that of a human body, but the most basic aorta should still be in the neck, right? Thinking of this, Jimmy, who was about to discuss with Victor, suddenly heard a shout. Roar. Jimmy looked at Victor in a daze, only to find that Victor had rushed into the cave. If UB***. Looking at the empty space in front of him, he listened attentively to the bear's roar and Victor's screams coming from the cave. Feeling helpless as he held his forehead, Jimmy got a headache and quietly sneaked into the cave. Sneaking into the cave, the first thing that catches your eye is Victor, who is being slapped around like a volleyball by a bear. So, saber-toothed tiger, you will never be a frontline superhero. Awakened from hibernation, this bear is clearly grumpy. Didn't even have much desire to eat. Instead, he was constantly ravaging Victor to vent his inner anger. Even the bear didn't even notice that Jimmy appeared in the cave. Of course, it may have been discovered, but Jimmy was ignored. Even Jimmy felt that as long as he didn't go up to attract firepower, then the bear would definitely kill Victor first and then attack himself. But want to kill Victor? Ha ha. Bone spurs appeared in the air, and when Victor was hit by the bear again, Jimmy shouted and rushed forward. Although the body strengthened by the mutant cells is not fully developed yet, there is still no problem in jumping on this male. The body continued to accelerate on the road, and then jumped up, raised the bone claws in his hand, and stabbed fiercely at the bear. Snapped. The body was still in midair, the bear just slapped back, and Jimmy flew out directly. The bear's strength was great. After offsetting Jimmy's momentum, Jimmy, who didn't have any point of strength, directly drew a beautiful arc from the air. And slid nearly a meter from the ground. The severe pain constantly stimulated Jimmy's brain, and Jimmy's eyes were bloodshot. The suppressed impulse was also completely released at this moment. And the bear was clearly attracted by Jimmy's presence. Step by step, he walked towards Jimmy. Roar. This is the voice of Victor. In a little time, with the help of the self-healing factor, Victor once again has the power to fight. With a leap of stature, he rushed towards the bear. Roar. The bear slapped Victor to the ground and growled at him. What? The bear, who was about to open his mouth to replenish his energy consumption, suddenly paused. Roar. There was another roar, but there was indeed a trace of pain in this roar. It was Jimmy who jumped on the bear and stabbed his bone claws into the brown bear's neck. The 30-centimeter long bone spur penetrated the brown bear's skin with difficulty. Withdrawing the bone claws, a large amount of blood spewed out from the brown bear's neck. And Jimmy was thrown directly by the brown bear. Such an injury is absolutely fatal to this brown bear. The pain also brought Jimmy back to sanity. He got up and trotted for 2 steps, grabbed Victor, who wanted to go up desperately, and wanted to take him out of the cave. There is absolutely no need to bear the beast's dying counterattack. But he didn't expect that the hand that grabbed Victor was thrown away directly. Glancing at the heroic Victor, Jimmy didn't go up to find excitement, and left the cave directly. Leaning on the dodge outside the cave, I heard the screams and roars from inside again. Jimmy slowly fell asleep. Jimmy didn't know why he fell asleep so quickly. Maybe it was because he was really tired. But this is quite normal. A day ago, Jimmy was still an author on the street. Now he became a Wolverine all of a sudden, and he was wading through mountains and rivers and fighting brown bears, and he fell asleep at this time, which is really normal. In his drowsiness, Jimmy seemed to see a book. This book is purple all over. On the cover, there are also 4 large characters of royal secrets. With a thought, the big purple book was slowly opened. There are dense characters exposed inside, and there are also pictures of human bodies in various poses. When he got here, Jimmy understood that this should be his golden finger. Looking at this big book, Jimmy also showed a satisfied smile on his face. As an author who hits the street, Jimmy knows all kinds of cheats of traversers. And the most satisfying thing is this kind of thing similar to inheritance. This is not the cheat that can improve the strength the fastest, the cheat that can improve the strength the fastest is the system. However, such things as strength can be cultivated bit by yourself, so you can use them with confidence and comfort. As for the slow growth of strength, Jimmy is not afraid of this at all. After all, I am still more than 100 years away from the first battle. In the past 100 years, if he still can't become the Supreme Martial Emperor, then he deserves to be killed. Jimmy doesn't know if he is the protagonist in a certain book, and he is not sure whether he has the aura of the protagonist. But if it is, then Jimmy wants to say a word from the bottom of his heart, praise the author. Bringing back his wandering thoughts, Jimmy began to study the book carefully. Nian Qi absorbs the power between heaven and earth to improve one's body, which has reached the state of steel and iron. The time wasn't very long, and the battle in the cave was over. After all, the brown bear had its main artery punctured, so it couldn't survive for too long. Therefore, the one who came out alive was obviously Victor. Victor looked very bad at this moment. He who was already embarrassed by yesterday's tiger looked even more embarrassed now. Especially the brownish hair, after being soaked in blood, the messy hair looked extremely united. The wind at the end of autumn is not small, but this wind can't blow away the hair that is so united. Said it was walking, but it was more like crawling out. Victor came out and saw Jimmy lying asleep on the edge of the cave. This rubbish. Victor muttered dissatisfiedly, but after feeling the cool wind outside, and looking at the ragged pajamas on Jimmy, after thinking about it, Victor still picked up Jimmy and sent him to the cave. At this time, the bloody brown bear was still lying in the cave. The whole cave was filled with a bloody smell. Put Jimmy on the place where the brown bear slept before, a protruding, relatively flat stone platform, covered with some weeds. It can be seen that this brown bear is also a particular person. A particular bear? Putting Jimmy on it, Victor touched his nose with a grim expression. Although Victor's sense of smell is not as good as Jimmy's, it is also much better than many ordinary people. The smell of blood here is really too strong. Looking at the brown bear, Victor swallowed with some difficulty. Now Victor really wants to deal with the brown bear and have a good meal, but at present, Victor alone has no way to deal with the brown bear. Glancing at Jimmy who was sleeping peacefully, Victor still didn't wake him up. At present, in fact, Victor is still not very clear about Jimmy's details. Of course, from the two who grew up together, Victor still has some understanding of Jimmy. However, Jimmy has just awakened his ability for less than 3 days, and Victor has no idea what kind of ability Jimmy has. This damn smell. In the end, Victor still couldn't bear the smell in the cave. Victor decided that he should go out for a while. After walking out of the cave, Victor quietly leaned against the edge of the cave. In fact, Victor really wants to take a bath now. His body is really too sticky. I think when he was in the manor, Victor was a well-known handsome guy. As for the night, Victor could see clearly even at night. For awakening abilities in beasts, night vision is only a basic operation. However, Victor did not go. Even though Victor was suffering, Victor still stayed at the entrance of the cave. Victor had told Jimmy the night he took Jimmy into the mountains. We are brothers, we have to support each other, and we are inseparable. Now, Victor is implementing this with his own actions. Victor knew that Jimmy was his own brother. This is what my alcoholic father said when he was dying. About an hour after Victor went out, Jimmy woke up. Now Jimmy has a general understanding of his heritage. This is a professional inheritance from DNF called Fighters. Extreme Martial Emperor. Although it is not written on the cover, this point has already been shown in the general outline. The current Jimmy can see very limited things, probably can only read the content of below. However, Jimmy knew that even this little thing was enough for him to study for 2 or 3 years. This reality is different from the game. The skills in the game are listed, and you only need to use skill points to use them. However, in reality, all skills need to be practiced a little bit by themselves. Even passive skills have to be cultivated by yourself, such as steel and iron. Moreover, when there is no exposure to professional skills, that is, what Jimmy sees now is all professional. There are a lot of pages, but they are all the most basic things. The only skill that has become a system is the skill learned secretly, Thunder Kick. Others are also very important, but if the single round is complete, it is the Thunderfoot. The 3 skills learned by stealing, the professional skills of 3 different professions: poison bottle throwing, neck bending, and thunder kick. Especially the thunder kick, as far as Jimmy knows, there is no Neonki attack with attributes in the skill system of Emperor Jiwu. However, all of this must start with the mind. What Jimmy needs to do now is to cultivate mind energy, and as the basis of everything, there is the most detailed explanation on how to cultivate mind energy in the Royal Secret Book. Now Jimmy just needs to follow in the footsteps of his predecessors. Learned how to use fire. Vomit. Just when he came back to his senses, Jimmy retched for a while. The smell in this cave was really strong. With such a big smell, no predators have come here yet? Jimmy stood up grumbling. Jimmy didn't think about it. The tyrant in the forest. The tiger was killed by Victor. And besides the tiger, which one of the predators came to provoke the brown bear? In the case of other bears hibernating, animals, in terms of the ability to recognize danger, surpass humans by too much. Even if Jimmy has a sense of smell dozens of times better than ordinary people, there is no way to really see himself as a beast. Mutants are human after all. But now, Superman's sense of smell did not bring any convenience to Jimmy, but brought endless torture to Jimmy. The smell of blood is not pleasant, but it is acceptable. However, when the smell is magnified dozens of times, it is difficult to accept. Therefore, even if Jimmy really wants to practice Nian Qi now, there is no way to do it. There is no other reason. To cultivate Nian Qi requires calmness. In such an environment, it is impossible for Jimmy to be calm. Of course, this is mainly because Jimmy has not been awakened for a long time. After a long time, Jimmy will get used to it. Staggering out of the cave, Jimmy saw Victor leaning against the edge of the cave, who seemed to have fallen asleep. Hey! Victor! Wake up! Jimmy patted Victor on the shoulder, just one pat, and Victor woke up. Obviously, even when he was asleep, Victor was still vigilant enough. Although this vigilance is not very good, a teenage child cannot be too demanding. You're awake. Victor, who had just woken up, saw that it was Jimmy. He was relieved immediately, leaned lazily on the mountain wall beside the cave, and asked Jimmy. Well, take that brown bear out and wash it. The smell is too strong, and it feels like your father who drank too much. That's your father too. Victor did not refute Jimmy's words, but responded calmly. Oh. All right. Jimmy couldn't refute for a moment, after all. It seemed to be a fact. Of course, Victor didn't mean to be lazy, and Victor was still very willing to deal with the brown bear. After all, no one wants to sleep outside when there is a warm cave. The two children, who were only 14 or 15 years old, moved the brown bear out reasonably. On the thorny forest path, the two little guys stopped, and finally came to the small lake they had been to before. It was rare that they did not encounter any danger on the road. I have to say that the luck of the two little guys is quite good. At this time, the sun had completely set on the hillside, and under the illumination of the moon, this unknown small lake was emitting a faint light as a whole. It looks stunning. However, under the hands of Jimmy and Victor, a not very good picture was staged. The tough bare skin of the brown bear seemed to be nothing under Victor's sharp claws, and a long opening was easily opened. Jimmy didn't show any weakness either, only one of the 3 bone spurs grew out, and Jimmy also opened a long cut on the cut made by Victor. The two brothers had a tacit understanding. A bear skin was divided into 2 halves, and one of them took half as a quilt. As for the mattress, how dare you have any extravagance? Jimmy didn't want to get another brown bear, and even Victor, who had always looked extremely tough, didn't bring up this topic. Although the two brothers have almost immortal recovery ability, it still hurts too much to challenge the brown bear. These are still 2 children after all. Whether it's sharp claws or bone spurs, the brown bear, which has completely lost its vitality, has no power to resist at this time, which leads to the rapid progress of the two brothers. And Jimmy also began to rejoice at this moment that he crossed over and became Wolverine. If someone accidentally crossed over and became Magneto, Jimmy wasn't even sure if he could survive 3 chapters. Thinking about it, if Magneto was thrown into this wilderness at his age, it would be difficult for him to live for 10 minutes, no matter how big the screenwriter gave him. Of course, if Magneto would not appear here. Jimmy, you scratched my hand, you idiot. Suddenly, Victor's body shrank back like an electric shock, and even Jimmy was taken aback by this sudden change. Sorry, Victor, this was definitely an accident. When Jimmy heard this, he quickly apologized. Jimmy is now really afraid of Victor, and because of this here comes a wild transformation. Jimmy doesn't want a physical exchange with Victor at all. Do not. Absolutely not. Victor is obviously not so ignorant of the overall situation. After all, Victor also understands how dangerous the wilderness at night is. Of course, it is very likely that Jimmy's quick attitude of admitting his mistakes satisfied Victor's vanity. In short, Victor did not give Jimmy an unforgettable memory in this month's dark and windy wild lake. Work continued. After washing the fur of the brown bear in water and putting it aside, the meat of the brown bear will naturally not be let go. Such a big brown bear is at least enough to feed 2.5 boys for half a month. After cleaning the brown bear, the two carried the brown bear back to the cave with its hide. Vic, I think we might need fire. Back in the cave, although he could see clearly in the dark, Jimmy was still a little unaccustomed to such an environment. Most importantly, Jimmy is hungry. So, now Jimmy urgently needs a pool of flames to cook a delicious barbecue for himself. Fire? Yes. Do you know why humans can stand at the top of the food chain? Jimmy asked Victor. Unity. Victor said without hesitation. Obviously, Victor values unity very much. Of course, the premise is to be regarded as a teammate by Victor. Not prey. No, Victor, you have to remember that the reason why humans can stand at the top of the food chain is because humans have learned to use fire. Jimmy said to Victor, remembering that this was said in a movie that Jimmy liked very much in his previous life. At that time, Jimmy felt that there was nothing wrong with what the lawyer said. Of course, unity is also very important. This is a matter of principle and cannot be denied at any time. Well, what you said seems to make sense. The fire was successfully lit, and there was no such thing as the legendary drilling of wood to make fire. Of course, the two of them did not have matches or lighters. The way of life is very simple: find some dry grass. The forage laid by the original owner of this cave, that is, the brown bear, can meet the requirements. Victor transformed his claws and placed them under the dry grass. There was a sharp rubbing between the two fingertips, a little spark burst out, and the fire rose. In this way, Jimmy is even more fortunate to have such an ability. At the same time, I am more satisfied with Victor as a partner. The other replacements are Magneto. In the current situation, Jimmy does not change. To light a fire and cook, these two words have always appeared together. After a full meal, Victor went to sleep, but Jimmy didn't go to sleep directly. Instead, he found a big rock, sat cross-legged on it, and prepared to practice Nian Qi. Jimmy doesn't know where the content behind the royal secrets is, but for now, Jimmy feels that the inheritance he has received is very comprehensive. Almost covers the characteristics of every occupation. Street Fighter's insidious, throwing sand. Mad Tiger Emperor's Nian Qi technique, Nian Qi bow. Basically, except for the master's throwing skills, I have seen related content. In this period of inheritance, what Jimmy valued the most was the way of cultivating Nian Qi and the reinforced bones. Jimmy remembered that Emperor Jiwu seemed to have the ability to summon hellfire. Jimmy can already be sure that whether he can survive in the hands of Thanos of the Family Planning Commission in the future depends on these three axes. But now, Jimmy needs to practice mindfulness first. Regarding the description of Nian Qi, it has been clearly introduced in the royal family's secret book. Nian Qi is the free power in the world, and cultivating Nian Qi is a process of storing this power in one's body. In the process of storing this power in one's own body, this power can also strengthen the practitioner's body. The function of Nian Qi is not limited to fighting. In Arad continent, before those apostles appeared, Nian Qi was originally used to pursue longevity. The principle of internal force is the same as other magic. The ultimate goal is to use this power to elevate one's life level. It was only because of the existence of the apostles later that these powers developed into the military field. And slowly developed different branches. However, all changes remain the same. Although fighters have developed 4 professions, they all use their own bodies as the basis in combat. Even Nian Huang, who is most like a mage, is a more professional melee mage than Kamataj's melee mage. And Jimmy's way of cultivating mind energy is also a common way for fighters to cultivate the next generation. Fighters are divided into 4 professions, but the 4 professions are all fighters. No matter what, they are also a family. Moreover, the relationship is not bad. The general practice method, as its name suggests, is universal. The characteristic is that it is impartial, and there will be no obvious partiality. Of course, this also means that it has no characteristics. Therefore, it is the way to train a new generation. After all, choosing a career also depends on talent. Each of the 4 major professions has its advantages and disadvantages, and the most suitable one is the strongest. As for the latter, Jimmy doesn't need to know yet. According to what the book said, let go of your mind and feel the so-called power floating between heaven and earth. The power between heaven and earth. Slowly let go. Maybe because of time travel, Jimmy soon felt the so-called power. It's very comfortable, the feeling that the cells in the body are boiling. According to the method mentioned in the book, Jimmy, who feels that he has connected with these forces, guides these forces according to the next step. From Jimmy's perspective, this power exists in the form of a small pale golden light spot. Working hard and carefully to control the golden energy, Jimmy channeled it into his body. According to the instructions in the book, Jimmy guided it into his dantian. At this point, the first step of cultivating mind energy is considered complete. Although this is also regarded as Nian Qi, the difference between fighters and other professions that cultivate Nian Qi is distinguished. A fighter is a fighter after all, and this can be seen from the list of skills alone. No matter which profession they are in, they all have a common passivity, steel and iron. In the game, this skill requires level 10 to unlock. However, in reality, this kind of skill is not activated by clicking, but requires the practitioner to practice bit by bit. Perhaps, when the strength of the game is about 10th level, some effects can be seen in the reinforced iron frame. After storing the golden energy in his dantian, there is still the next step. Nianqi can improve the level of life. How to improve? It is to strengthen cells and genes, so as to naturally achieve a kind of evolution. And the reinforced iron frame is a clever use of this. Jimmy feels that the development of such a method should be the work of many seniors who have died. After all, it is a change at the cellular level. Walk the mind energy in the body according to a special method. The reason for doing this is to strengthen the cells and genes, so as to strengthen one's body from the inside out, and finally achieve the purpose of strengthening the iron frame. Jimmy estimated that when Nian Qi first appeared, Nian Qi should not have the function of strengthening the physical body. Of course, it must be stronger than those who have not practiced it, but the magnitude will not be very large. This is an ability unique to fighters. Moreover, at this time, Jimmy had already interrupted his action of absorbing golden energy. Cultivating mind energy is cultivating mind energy, and a reinforced iron frame is a reinforced iron frame. One is skills, the other is ability, they are different. Absorbing thought energy needs to be stored in the body, and cultivating reinforced iron bones requires slowly using the thought energy in one's body to actively strengthen the cells in one's body, so as to achieve the effect of strengthening the whole body. And now, what Jimmy is doing is to use the mind to strengthen his cells. The thought energy that was still very thin in the body began to move under Jimmy's thoughts. Kinda hurts. Nianqi itself is gentle, and it can slowly strengthen the cells of the practitioner. But the method of strengthening the iron frame is used to speed up this process. So, pain is normal. This is also within Jimmy's tolerance range. Compared with the pain when I just crossed, this is just drizzle. This process is also divided into 2 steps. The first step is to strengthen these cells. The second step is to repair those cells. The work of the first step was completed, but Jimmy found that he didn't need the second step at all. After the cells are strengthened, they need to be repaired. After all, this method of strengthening cells is really not that gentle. However, when Jimmy was about to repair his cells, he found that his cells were recovering slowly. Is the self-healing factor at work? Jimmy doesn't quite understand the principle of this phenomenon, but there is no doubt that such a phenomenon is very happy. Because in this case, it means that I can save half of my thoughts and store them. Moreover, there is more time to accumulate thoughts. The method of steel and iron is really not gentle, and it can even be said to be cruel. Therefore, according to the information in the inheritance, once a day is the best way to cultivate steel and iron bones. Cells also need a process of adaptation. Therefore, Jimmy has more time to practice mind energy. Without further ado, Jimmy began to absorb the power between heaven and earth. And without Jimmy's knowledge, a layer of black sticky substance also appeared on Jimmy's body. Oh, Jimmy! Did you fall in the cesspit? In the early morning, after waking up, Victor yelled in dissatisfaction. Obviously, the smell on Jimmy's body is very suffocating now. Victor, I believe that your breakfast today was actually in a cesspit, right? Jimmy slowly opened his eyes, and he could clearly see that there were obvious bloodshot eyes in Jimmy's eyes. Does it smell bad on me? Jimmy couldn't believe it, but still subconsciously sniffed his body. Vomit. How is it? You are also attracted by the smell of cow dung on your body, Jimmy. Seeing this, Victor suddenly laughed. Go to hell, Victor. Jimmy replied dissatisfied, and dragged his tired body towards the wild lake where the brown bear was washed last night. Jimmy swears, if anyone dares to tell Jimmy that he can't make progress in practice, he won't be tired, and it can relieve fatigue. Jimmy must wring his head off and stuff it in the brown bear's pelvis. Jimmy, who has practiced Nian Qi for a whole night, now has a feeling that he dragged his puffy body to play all night in his previous life. False footsteps, dizzy head. This feeling made Jimmy feel that life would be worse than death. Jimmy, what's the matter with you? Did you sneak out last night to do something you shouldn't do? Victor has been following Jimmy and taunting him mercilessly. Victor, I think you'd better not go out on rainy days from now on. Why? Are you concerned about me? Don't worry, my body is very good, much stronger than yours. I'm afraid that you will be struck to death by lightning when you go out. Some gritted their teeth and came to the side of the wild lake. Jimmy simply washed his body. With Jimmy as the center, there was a black mist in a radius of about 3 meters, and there seemed to be 1 or 2 salmon with white belly. Obviously, what's coming out of Jimmy's body is obviously not a good thing. Look, Jimmy, how pitiful are those fish? Victor's sarcasm follows. Although there was a compassionate expression on Victor's face. However, Jimmy could see the playfulness in Victor's eyes. This guy is definitely not feeling sorry for those fish, his purpose is pure, just to mock himself. This bastard. Of course Victor would not feel bad for those fish. Can you expect him, who doesn't even care about human life, to feel compassion for fish? Victor, if you are so in need of a beating, I will really beat you. After practicing Nian Qi all night, Jimmy felt that his strength should have grown a lot, and he should be able to deal with Victor. Moreover, Jimmy himself is also a person who likes to be able to do it without nagging. In other words, Jimmy swelled. Oh? Jimmy, are you serious? Hearing Jimmy's words, Victor's expression changed indiscernibly. Slowly standing up from the ground, a pair of sharp claws also appeared in the air. Victor can joke with Jimmy, but Victor absolutely cannot allow Jimmy to challenge his authority. That's right, Victor took good care of Jimmy, and it could almost be regarded as not abandoning or giving up. However, this is based on his position as the eldest brother. Victor, I advise you to calm down. Jimmy was not to be outdone, and even the exhaustion of the night disappeared at this moment. Jimmy, if I didn't know that this place is in the wild, I would have thought you drank too much yesterday. Who? Victor, who was chatting and laughing one moment before, had rushed towards Jimmy the next moment. Facing Victor, who was rushing towards him, Jimmy instinctively made a choice before he could react. Stretched his hands diagonally upwards, and the next moment, Victor's body appeared above the bone spur. Facing this kind of attack that could easily kill him, Victor didn't take it seriously at all. Of course, this is not to say how hard Victor's body is, or how fearless Victor is. In fact, in the original time and space, whether it is the saber-toothed tiger or the wolverine before being transplanted with Mandela metal, their physical enhancement is not very obvious. At most, it is the level of the esteem. Jimmy also used his bone claws to prove that when Victor was stabbed, he should bleed, but he would not be injured. This is really a sad story. In the original time and space, the two brothers fell in love and killed each other for a lifetime, and neither of them killed the other in the end. And now, obviously, the brothers still have a tendency to develop in this direction. It's just that the current Wolverine is not as good as the Wolverine in the original time and space. Brother, I was wrong. Facts have proved that although the mind energy that has been cultivated all night is not useless, it has not yet reached the point where Jimmy can counterattack Victor. Seeing things can't be done, Jimmy decisively admits cowardice. It's not a shame to admit defeat, it's a fool to keep fighting. Jimmy doesn't want to fight with Victor. What's the point of fighting with something that can't be beaten or chewed? The point is, it's extremely painful, although this pain is still within Jimmy's tolerance. But being able to accept it doesn't mean you can't feel it. Whether or not Jimmy has masochistic tendencies, he naturally wouldn't like this feeling. However, if you don't lose the battle, you still have to say the harsh words that should be said. I was busy all night yesterday. I was really tired. Otherwise, you would definitely not be my opponent. Jimmy looked at Victor and said so seriously. Jimmy, I advise you to recognize the reality. Victor shrugged. It can be seen that Victor is in a good mood now. He looks good with a smile on his face, if he can wipe the blood off his face. What did you do yesterday? Contradictions came and went quickly. Walking on the path in the forest, Victor asked Jimmy, who was sluggish beside him. Victor really couldn't figure out what Jimmy could do last night. Absorb the essence of the sun and the moon. Jimmy made a nonsense casually. To be honest, Jimmy didn't really want to hand over what he knew to Victor. As for the reason, Jimmy can't say it, anyway, it's right not to think about it. Absorb the essence of the sun and the moon. Victor's face was full of question marks, and it was the first time Victor had heard of such a thing. In this day and age, let alone online novels, there is no internet at all. Although I don't know if the black technology of the underground organization hidden in an unknown corner has developed a computer. However, in the market, there is no such epic-making thing. Yes, there is a golden energy between the heaven and the earth, haven't you noticed it? While talking, Jimmy pointed at the air in front of him. In fact, Jimmy can't see it now. Is this one of your mutant abilities? Victor looked in the direction Jimmy pointed, but saw nothing. Maybe it is. In fact, I can't see it now. I only discovered it last night when I was about to fall asleep. Then I tried to guide it into my body, and then I did it all night. Jimmy shrugged. In fact, Jimmy had already explained the cultivation method of Nian Qi. Relaxing the mind and sensing the surroundings is the first step, and it is also the threshold of mindfulness. As for how to leapfrog, it depends on talent. Look. With that said, Jimmy also started to demonstrate. Raising his hand, the thoughts in his body gathered towards the center under Jimmy's control. A little golden light appeared between Jimmy's forehead, and under the sunlight, it exuded a faint light. That's cool. I want to try it too. A look of shock appeared on Victor's face, and he continued. Okay. I support you, dear Victor, but I think I need to get a good night's sleep now. I'm getting sleepy right now. Back in the cave, lying on the stone platform, Jimmy said to Victor in a charming manner, turned over and fell asleep. Victor sat on the ground and began to feel sleepy. Huh. Jimmy, who was full of sleep, opened his eyes, and suddenly saw Victor, who was lying on the ground and fell asleep. The corners of his mouth twitched slightly, and Jimmy got up and walked out. At the end of autumn, the sky was late and early, and when he walked out of the cave, Jimmy found that the sky had turned dark. In theory, it should be time for bed now, but Jimmy just woke up, so naturally it is impossible to fall asleep. Slowly, Jimmy strolled to the lake. The moonlight tonight is still very charming, but the purpose of Jimmy's coming here is not to admire the moon. I don't know if it's a simple X-Men world or a Marvel universe with everything. Naturally, it is impossible for Jimmy to live in the mountains willingly for a lifetime. Jimmy has a very clear understanding of this disgusting world. No matter where you hide, you are likely to die. Jimmy, who doesn't know if Fuliankun exists, can only prepare for the worst. Thanos is the final boss, and Jimmy has to prepare early. Assuming that Thanos exists, then the first thing Jimmy has to do is to hold all the 4 infinite gems that have appeared on the earth in his hands. Whether you can use it or not, you have to get it in your hands. If you don't know how to use it, you can study it slowly, but if it is taken away by Thanos, it will be a lot of fun. A 50-50 chance sounds good, but Jimmy doesn't want to gamble with his life. And he also has the black physique of being a mutant. Mutants' abilities are abnormal, but when they enjoy the convenience brought by their abilities, they also have to bear the corresponding price. For example, without a choice, you stand directly on the opposite side of human beings. So, whether to join the dovish Professor X side or join the hawkish Magneto side is debatable. This choice will be made sooner or later. After 100 years, Professor X will use the brainwave enhancement device to find mutants and fight against the Hellfire Club. Moreover, in the near future, about 100 years later, the Sentinel robot will be developed, and the apocalypse will also appear in the world. One by one, even if Jimmy didn't want to participate, as a mutant, Jimmy couldn't help himself. After all, these are hits in pieces. Like the Sentinels, all mutants are targeted. Ordinary people who are likely to awaken mutants are also targeted. If it is the apocalypse, then the whole world is within the range of his target. Jimmy doesn't want to send his future self back in time to solve this problem. He didn't even want to just quietly wait for Phoenix Girl to explode. These choices are unreliable no matter how you look at them. Jimmy, on the other hand, only has about 200 years to prepare. Quite a lot. Jimmy's first plan for the future is to complete the first stage of training in the Rocky Mountains, and then walk out of this damned wilderness to see what kind of ghost world this is. Standing by the lake, Jimmy began to practice, of course, not the kind of practice that sits on the ground and slowly cultivates mind energy. But it belongs to the practice method of fighters. When fighters are practicing, they have never been so quiet. Like Jimmy's practice yesterday, it was just enlightenment. Real fighters practice with body movements, and Jimmy, this is what he is practicing now. Kick forward, back kick, side kick, punch, gale pursuit. These basic movements are the daily practice of fighters. After a long period of time, fighters have summed up a method that replaces conventional practice. Otherwise, no matter how talented a person is, the growth cycle needed to practice body during the day and mind energy at night is amazing. With punches and kicks, Jimmy is also slowly feeling and guiding the thoughts between heaven and earth. This kind of cultivation method is very difficult. 1 mind and 2 tasks are just basic operations. There is no doubt that Jimmy has a long way to go to achieve this. However, no matter how difficult it is, you have to practice, and Jimmy puts the highest value on his golden fingers. And Jimmy is indeed growing rapidly. But what Jimmy didn't know was that in the distant Karmatage, there was still a big bald head watching him constantly. If Jimmy knows, then Jimmy can know, this must be the Marvel world. A world of hell-level difficulty. What? As soon as he grabbed it and swung it out, the towering ancient tree that had grown for an unknown number of years slowly fell down, and then a thunderbolt suddenly appeared, and the towering ancient tree was kicked off in the middle. Jimmy, I swear, I must also feel that golden energy. Victor on the side sat on a tree stump, looked at Jimmy who was showing off his might, and said in a sour tone. Looking at the little brother in front of him, Victor felt very uncomfortable. He thought he could bully this little brother casually. But he didn't expect that he could only bully him for a week. I trust you, Victor, Jimmy said to Victor with a smile on his face. It's just that this smile fell in Victor's eyes, and it was ridiculed no matter how he looked at it. Humph. At the moment, Victor could only snort coldly. Victor had already seen the reality clearly. If I can't master that kind of golden energy, then I may not be able to beat Jimmy for the rest of my life. Seeing this, Jimmy didn't pay attention to Victor either. Although it seemed that Victor was very unhappy now, after such a long contact, Jimmy also had some basic understanding of Victor. This guy's mental resilience is on par with his self-healing factor. Looking at the withered and yellow leaves again, Jimmy knew that it was time for him to get out of the mountain. The leaves have withered and turned yellow 3 times, which means that they have been in the mountains for 3 years now. In the past 3 years, his strength has grown a lot. Really, Jimmy really didn't expect that in the past 3 years, the fastest growing thing for him was not his own abilities, but its own mutation ability. But this is really normal. Jimmy was still young and had just awakened his ability, which was growing rapidly. It has been nourished by Nian Qi for another 3 years. Although the nourishing self-healing factor is only incidental, 3 years is enough to make a qualitative change in Jimmy's self-healing factor. According to the classification of mutant abilities in this world, Jimmy's self-healing factor is at the 3rd level, and it is estimated to have reached the 4th level now. Not only that, the self-healing factor is only one part of it, and Jimmy has also made great progress in the practice of mind energy. The current Jimmy has grown to about level 10. In the game, the current Jimmy can already change jobs. But Jimmy hasn't. It's not that Jimmy doesn't want to change jobs, it's just that Jimmy wants to lay a solid foundation as much as possible. After all, I still have plenty of time now. Even, Jimmy can continue to live in the mountains for 3 years. But Jimmy couldn't stay any longer. He ate meat every day, and Jimmy almost vomited. Now Jimmy urgently needs to enter human society to taste normal dishes. Moreover, the main reason is because of a skill that Jimmy has just mastered recently, Wake Up. This skill requires Jimmy to awaken his potential in the battle between life and death. And in this deep mountain and forest, Jimmy and Victor have become men at the top of the food chain. So, Jimmy needs to get out, no matter what. Even Victor wants to go out and see now. Victor, shall we go out? Sitting on the steak he had just made, Jimmy looked at Victor in front of him and spread his hands. Oh Jimmy. You finally figured out to get out of this shitty place. Snapped. Just when Victor had just said these words, a lump of bird droppings suddenly appeared on Victor's face. The smile on Victor's face suddenly froze on his face, and he looked coldly at the bird docked on the tree. Victor grinned grimly. I agree to go out, but before I do that let me catch the damned bird. Victor said viciously. Before the words fell, Victor tiptoed to the tree and climbed up quickly. Jimmy, on the other hand, was dazzled and dazzled. To be honest, until now, Jimmy admired Victor's hand very much. It's too slippery. Jimmy, who has already cultivated Nian Qi, can't do it now. Of course, if it was Jimmy, he wouldn't have to climb up the tree to get the bird. Even if Jimmy was under the tree, he would have plenty of ways to get it. However, Victor is still very reliable. With Jimmy's physical help over the years, he finally knows that Victor, who has water in his brain besides muscles, is very smart now. After a while, a golden bird that was tested became the practice meal for the 2 brothers. 1 bird and 2 people are 2 mutants with a big appetite. However, the 2 brothers were not hungry. After feeling what hunger was in the first winter, a lot of meat was hoarded in the cave where Jimmy and Victor lived. This little bird was just a temporary idea. After eating something and returning to the cave to get some jerky, Jimmy and Victor were on their way. Deep into the Rocky Mountains, Jimmy didn't know how to go. After all, after 3 years, neither Victor nor Jimmy knew how to get out. Now Jimmy and Victor have completely integrated into this huge ecological circle, and the creatures here have also recognized these 2 strange but powerful predators. Now Jimmy and Victor are walking on the road, not even a single snake dares to stand up. But if they don't know the way, it doesn't mean that the 2 brothers just found a direction at random, and the 2 started to move forward. Anyway, you can eat wherever you go, as long as you don't always carry it here, then there is no problem at all. It took another few months to go. The autumn, which was supposed to be good, had turned into winter when Jimmy walked out of the Rocky Mountains. Tightening the mink on his body, Jimmy walked out with his neck curled up. This looks like a frontier town, and the town looks a bit retro. But this is not retro. After all, this era has basically nothing to do with modern times. Victor, do you remember what it takes for people to trade? Jimmy stopped suddenly and turned to look at Victor. Under Victor's puzzled eyes, Jimmy took 2 steps forward and untied the mink scarf from Victor's neck. These things may be very expensive in human society, but they are much simpler in the mountains. If you really want to get them, Victor can get a dozen or 20 of them a day. We need something called money. While stuffing Victor's scarf into his arms, Jimmy walked forward without looking back. Then why not use yours? Because I'm afraid of the cold. Vic, I think we might need a drink. As the sun set, Jimmy, who was holding a stack of dollars in his hand, said this to Victor. The perfect time, the perfect place, and the money in hand, you couldn't find a more perfect place to drink than this. They found a small tavern at random, and the two sat down. As soon as the food and drink were served, the two couldn't wait to have a drink. Eat a bite of beef at Maymay. Oh my God, Jimmy was moved to tears. Finally eat the food of human society. It's not easy. When watching Avengers in his previous life, Jimmy had several dreams. Be sure to discuss tech with Iron Man. Be sure to tell Thanos that his thinking is wrong. But now that he has become Wolverine, Jimmy has one more dream. That is licking cats. And now, Jimmy's dream is about to come true. This meal, Jimmy and Victor ate for a long time and drank a lot. The self-healing factor was not immune to the alcohol, and the wobbly two walked out of the tavern just like that. There are no streetlights in this small town. After all, this era is still relatively backward, and it is impossible to compare with the later generations in terms of enjoyment. But neither Jimmy nor Victor cared about that. Even if there are no streetlights on the road here, even the road here is still a very primitive dirt road. However, no matter how you say it, it is better than the mountains. Jimmy hasn't arrived at the hotel yet. Victor put his whole body on Jimmy's body, and asked Jimmy a little stammeringly. It should be here soon. Who knows? Jimmy also drank a lot, and the scene in front of him was about to appear double. But Jimmy hadn't gotten to Victor's level yet. This rubbish, you can't fight, you can't drink. As Jimmy walked, he complained in his heart. Although I know that Neonki can easily remove these alcohols from my body. But Jimmy didn't do that. If you're not drunk, what's the point of drinking it? Are you crazy? Help. Ah. I go. The sudden shout made Jimmy tremble. Putting Victor aside, Jimmy frowned and walked towards the source of the sound. Let go of that girl. Let. Jimmy shouted loudly. In fact, Jimmy's wine is not sober yet. But Jimmy doesn't care, it's just a few hooligans, and Jimmy thinks he can handle it. Jimmy also wanted to perform a set of drunken fists while he was drunk. At that time, maybe he behaved well and could embrace the beauty. As for not seeing it, you have been single for more than 20 years, and you still have so many demands? It's a woman, isn't it? Eh? Are today's hooligans so tasteful? Are you still wearing a suit? Jimmy looked at the group of people with drunken eyes. But when these people turned their heads, the sharp canine teeth exposed to the air made Jimmy tremble all over. The alcohol or something completely rolled out of Jimmy's body at this moment. But the woman who was originally screaming fell to the ground without a sound. It's. You go on, I'm just passing by. As Jimmy spoke, his footsteps began to retreat backwards. It is a good teaching from our ancestors that it is good to be able to benefit the world at the same time, but it is also passed down from the ancestors to be poor and be alone. These guys are not low creatures like vampires. This is the demon believed by these vampires now. That ferocious face was definitely not a vampire, none of the vampires looked so ugly. However, although he looks a bit ugly, he is strong. What's more, this woman is dead. Jimmy can now swear to avenge them in the future, but he will definitely not confront them now. Yo. Jane, guess what I asked? This is a mutant. Okay. The scarlet eyes of the demon named Jane seemed even brighter in the dark night. Thank you, Satan. Come on. The demon named Jane heard the words, recited a sentence in a low voice, and rushed towards Jimmy with a wave of his big hand. His footsteps paused, and Jimmy wanted to run away, because these people seemed to be similar to him. There are still so many people. If a fight is really going to happen, Jimmy really doesn't know what the consequences will be. After thinking about it, Victor was still not far away. It would have been difficult to escape by himself, let alone bring Victor with him. Then it is even more impossible to run. As for abandoning Victor and running away by himself, this idea never crossed Jimmy's mind. It's not some brotherly love, and it's not some Madonna. It's just that I simply feel that if I do that, I will appear to be particularly inferior. As the saying goes, take a gamble to turn a bicycle into a motorcycle. As for losing, anyway, they can't kill themselves. All kinds of thoughts flashed through Jimmy's heart, and the thoughts rushed towards Jimmy's hands under Jimmy's control. A faint golden light rose from Jimmy's hands, strong fist. Footsteps rushed forward according to a certain route, and Jimmy appeared in front of Jane in an instant. What? An uppercut was thrown fiercely, and at the moment when the fist touched Jane's chin, the bone spur appeared instantly, and the bone spur, which was also glowing with a faint golden light, disappeared as it stretched and retracted, but the fist still hit Jane's chin. Forehead. Nian Qi obviously has some restraint damage to the demon, and the 3 blood holes in the chin made it impossible for Jane to say even a word. Forehead. However, at this moment, a long knife slashed fiercely on Jimmy's back. The strong momentum made Jimmy stagger 2 steps forward. The severe pain made him almost cry out. Jane, you actually let a human kid get hurt, you are so shameless, Jane. Jane. The demon who slashed Jimmy seemed to want to mock his companion, but he didn't expect that his companion was already dead. Bastard boy. How dare you kill Jane? Catch you, and I will definitely throw you into the arena to fight the cave demon. The demon roared angrily, and weapons of various shapes appeared in the hands of other demons. Everyone yelled and rushed towards Jimmy. Woo. Jimmy's back injury has already healed after the idiot devil's delay. In a flash, the demon who told Jimmy to send him to the arena also fell in this place. The movement didn't stop, turning around was a thunderkick, but it was blocked by someone. After all, demons are not like ordinary people, although they are not very good looking. However, their strength is naturally very strong. Those with a sturdy body and better talent can even use magic. It's not comparable to Jimmy, a fledgling little guy. However, perhaps the practice of Nian Qi is not yet perfect, so Jimmy is no match for these demons now. However, there are mutant cells called self-healing factors in Jimmy's body. This kind of ability is really abnormal, especially when placed on a fighter who is known for his lifelessness. Thunder's foot was blocked, but Jimmy didn't panic at all. While his foot was still on the devil's knife, he stepped hard, and Jimmy's body completed a beautiful turn in midair. Strong punch. At this moment, the moves that Jimmy has mastered are constantly being integrated. Before landing, the thoughts in the body began to circulate throughout the body. Overlord armor. Ignoring the knife on his body, Jimmy sent the demon in front of him flying with one punch. One punch hit the door, and there were still 3 blood holes in the face of the flying demon. Without even looking at it, Jimmy continued to deal with the enemy in front of him. With the constant fighting, Jimmy felt that the bigger he was, the more comfortable he was, and the bigger the better. These enemies, which he thought he was incapable of fighting, all fell under his fist at this moment. Jimmy's heart is still full of a sense of accomplishment. Well, Jimmy admits that it's really shameless to release his bone claws when the fist is about to be pressed into the enemy's face. However, wouldn't it be more shameless for a group of them to beat themselves up? The demons, on the other hand, couldn't believe it, and couldn't figure out why this human being wouldn't fall down even after being slashed with a knife. However, the intensification of the fighting also made these demons who were born for fighting also red-eyed. Ao Ao rushed to Jimmy. Jimmy also rushed towards these demons. The battle didn't last very long, and what Jimmy got was the inheritance of Emperor Jiwu, although Jimmy hasn't changed his job yet. However, the secrets of the royal family already seem to be more biased towards Emperor Wu. Therefore, the fighting time cannot last too long, and no demon can withstand a punch from Jimmy's hidden claws. But the number of demons is not too small, there are nearly 6 of them, but these demons did not persist for too long when Jimmy did not remember the damage. In about 10 minutes, these demons were all lying on the ground. Without exception, all of them lost their breath. Dante Collingham is a relatively advanced demon, he doesn't have those gradual double horns, he looks very much like an ordinary earthling. Short and thin, Dante has been stared at by everyone since he was a child. However, Dante found his talent and was finally valued by his bowl. West, the boss of Demon Arena, also his own boss. Today, Dante came out to perform a mission, to kill these demons. As West's confidant, Dante knows that the world is not so safe. Even his own boss can only keep a low profile, why would these trash dare to come out and stir up trouble? If it really provokes that woman to make a move, it will be over. However, Dante did not expect that he would get an unexpected surprise when he came out for such a trip. Thank you, Satan. What a perfect mutant. Speed, strength, size and looks. Even the retractable claws are so charming. If such a treasure is placed in the arena, how many ladies will be crazy about it? Dante has even seen a lot of magic coins being poured into his pocket. Dante doesn't like magic coins, but Dante knows that his boss, West, likes magic coins. Dante likes to see his boss laugh, because only then can Dante find his worth. When the last demon fell to the icy ground. When the blood in Jimmy's heart slowly cooled down. Jimmy couldn't hold on any longer and half kneeled on the ground. So tired. So painful. There are many liquids of various colors on the ground. Among them, there is also the blood flowing from Jimmy's body. His figure slowly changed from half kneeling to sitting slumped. Jimmy's whole body is dizzy now. This is a normal reaction after losing a lot of blood. Even the self-healing factor can't help Jimmy completely immune to these injuries. However, Jimmy is happy now. I won. Slowly moving towards the corner of the wall. Just now, Jimmy's heart was full of warning signs, but now can he still have any resistance? He only felt a sharp pain in the back of his head, and Jimmy passed out silently. Throwing aside the half-broken red brick that he picked up casually, Dante carried Jimmy on his shoulder and disappeared here without saying a word. Victor, who is not far away, is already entangled with a trash can at this time. Dante, this is. Seeing Dante who was busy, West was a little puzzled. Didn't you say that Dante was going to take care of those guys who were doing things? Why did you bring someone back? Boss. I swear, this little guy can definitely drive those rich ladies crazy. Dante said excitedly, like a child who has scored 100 points in an exam and is eager to show off in front of his parents. Huh. He looks good, but are you sure he can fight? I'm afraid he can't even fight the most trashy hell spiders? West asked, pulling out Jimmy's face covered by long messy hair. Sure enough. I saw a very nice face. The transformation of the soul to the body, and the optimization of the mind to the body, make Jimmy now look like a mixed race. However, West, who has been running the arena for so many years, knows it clearly. Those ladies are ladies from rich families are not only interested in one face. There are, but too few. Strength is the only pursuit of the people of hell. Boss, this is a mutant, and you may not know it, but he killed Jane and the others by himself. Dante continued to explain, which probably means that Dante is very optimistic about this guy who was captured. Although he looks only 15 or 16 years old, Dante is confident that this little guy can definitely bring the boss an ecstatic smile. Okay. Then deal with him and play the finale tomorrow. West thought for a while, and finally agreed to Dante's proposal. With a face like Jimmy, there is no problem at all in the finale. Just a gimmick can make those guys who don't know anything take out the magic coins in their pockets. Jimmy slept a long time that night. The massive blood loss came suddenly again. Even with the self-healing factor, Jimmy still needs to rest for a while. It seems that someone hit me all the time? Jimmy touched the back of his head in confusion. Of course, there is no pain there anymore, but he is the only clue that appears here with himself. Is this guy really handsome? That's right, it doesn't look so burly. Baya looks so beautiful, but it's a pity that he will be torn to pieces in the next moment. In the Devil's Arena, all the spectators are watching the person in the duel arena attentively. There was a lot of discussion in the audience, and at this time, Jimmy was also attracted by the voices of these people. What? Where is this? What's the situation? Only then did Jimmy begin to survey his surroundings. This is a place similar to a stage. It's just that there is an extra circle of iron railings around it. Where is Thesey crossed again? But after feeling it, I found that my thought energy was still there. Putting his hands in front of his eyes, a pair of bone claws popped out. Almost missed Jimmy's eyeball. They're all here. Are you traveling with your physical body? Not to mention Jimmy's doubts here, when the people in the audience saw the pair of bone claws that Jimmy popped out. But the eyes were a little more relaxed, especially those who pressed Jimmy to survive. Click. At this moment, a voice came, and Jimmy's attention was immediately attracted. Taking a closer look, Jimmy's face suddenly became extremely exciting. What is this thing? Wolf. Looking at it from Jimmy's perspective, he could only see a canine creature as tall as two people walking slowly, coming out of a powerhouse. Ow! As soon as he came out, the guy raised his head to the sky and screamed loudly. What? Although he doesn't know what the situation is now, Jimmy knows that this guy who looks like a wolf will never let him go. Animals have no human friends. Either the prey or the hunter. Jimmy doesn't want to be the hunter, Jimmy just doesn't want to be the prey. The flow of thoughts flowed and converged on a pair of bone claws. With mysterious steps under his feet, Jimmy's figure appeared next to the wolf in the next moment. The sudden change made everyone who was about to tell Jimmy the current situation dumbfounded. Is this guy getting into the game too quickly? However, this moment also made the audience's blood boil with excitement. Ah! Kill that bastard! Pounce on it, bastard! All kinds of noisy voices entered Jimmy's senses, and Jimmy probably understood what kind of situation he was in now. Is this being thrown into the duel field? It makes people's blood boil. The surrounding noises did not affect Jimmy, and in the next instant, Jimmy's claws had already entered the wolf's body. Aha! With one blow, Jimmy, who was about to take advantage of the victory and chase after him, suddenly let out a cry of pain. The whole person was thrown away by the wolf. The size of a demon wolf is about 3 times that of an ordinary wolf. Its power is even more powerful. Under this blow, Jimmy was thrown directly to the railings surrounding the arena. What? Bursts of black lightning appeared, and Jimmy shouted loudly again. The figure quickly slid down from the railing made of unknown material. Sparks and lightning all the way, and Jimmy's back lying on the ground has become bloody. What? The severe pain stimulated Jimmy's spirit, and the beast instinct that had been suppressed for a long time reappeared in Jimmy's heart again. The bone claws were sharp, and the energy flowed, and Jimmy's entire body exuded a faint golden light. The claws hang down by the sides, pretending to be running crazily. As Jimmy ran, the audience present also stood up one after another. Come on. What are you doing standing there? Come on. Kill that bastard. Everyone cheered for their choice. The magic wolf also seemed to understand the people's language, and with all its strength, it also ran towards Jimmy. When he was about to reach Jimmy, the wolf's figure suddenly jumped, and the wolf's face was only 1 step away from Jimmy. What? Fighters' moves are no joke. Every move and every style seems to be the same. However, the exertion skills contained in it are not the same. Taking advantage of the opportunity to turn around on the way of sprinting, the sharp bone claws had long since disappeared, and the hard elbow hit the huge wolf face in an instant. The magic wolf, which was as tall as 2 people, was directly sent flying by Jimmy. This simple elbow strike dealt 10 times as much damage as Jimmy himself. This is also the reason why Emperor Jiwu is called a lunatic. Pursue ultimate power, even beyond the limits of the human body. This is the best interpretation of Emperor Jiwu's life. But the facts have proved that compared to the other professions, there are really too few martial emperors who have truly surpassed the limit. There is no other reason. Many Wu Ji died under scarred bodies on the road to pursue the Emperor Wu. However, Jimmy didn't care about that physical damage. It's not that Jimmy is proud. This body can at least support his pursuit of the Emperor of Martial Arts for 300 years. This is when the self-healing factor is not strengthened by the mind. One move is good, and the next move is even more fatal. Glancing at the direction where the magic wolf fell, Jimmy stepped hard, took 2 quick steps, and made a big jump. Heavy punch. Bang. Pumbaa. There were 2 loud bangs, and the last one caused a shockwave. The firm floor of the arena was covered with dense cracks. Heavy punch. Advanced skill of eagle stepping. It can perform up to 2 combos, and of course it can also grow later. The first hit can cause 10 times the damage of Jimmy. The second blow can cause Jimmy 20 times the damage. The shockwave caused by the second hit will cause AoE damage to the surroundings. Of course, such skills are also very harmful to Jimmy himself. In other words, none of Sonda or even Wu Jiji Wewang's skills have a small impact on the body. However, Jimmy didn't care. In the overlord state, Jimmy's pain was greatly weakened. After the battle is over, the self-healing factor has been repaired. No problem at all. However, it's not over yet. The wolf is still panting. Although it is very subtle, it can't escape Jimmy's nose at all. This is a pair of noses that can smell the spectrum. Kick the next paragraph. With a sharp kick, it hit the wolf's head. Crack. The unique sound effect brought by the shattering of bones made everyone on the scene quiet. But then, even more enthusiastic cheers erupted. Yeah. This is where money is won. Asshole. Rubbish. This is red-eyed. In short, at this moment, these people from hell are no different from gamblers in the world. Looking at the demon wolf who had no breath in front of him, Jimmy stood there panting. In fact, until now, Jimmy still doesn't know what happened. For Jimmy, it's all muddled. Appeared in a daze here. Killed a wolf in a daze. Confused. Have a good stage effect? And at this time, in the background. Boss, did you see? This is simply what he was born to do. Explode, lay the groundwork, and explode again. My God. He is still a rookie who doesn't understand anything. Well, it's really good. Hearing Dante's words, West's hands were trembling slightly. It's not that he was moved because he saw a good seedling. The main reason is that West crushed Jimmy to death. Originally, West felt that even if this guy could kill those low-level demons, he would not be able to defeat this demonic wolf. West felt that the game was stable, but he didn't expect. What the hell? Money. Money inside and out. Although this time Jimmy also made a lot of money for West. However, thinking about those losses, West's heart is bleeding. However, even though he was particularly unhappy in his heart, In order to take care of his subordinates, West managed to squeeze out a smile. "Well done, Dante. Sure enough, I saw you right." Hearing his boss's compliment, Dante smirked. Dante is very satisfied. A compliment is enough, of course, the premise is that it comes from West. Only now did Jimmy truly discover how powerful he was. Now Jimmy is looking back, if the few little devils he met that night, it would not be a problem for Jimmy to let them have a hand. The reason why he fought so hard is that the name of the devil occupies a large reason. Shaking off the wolf blood on his hands, Jimmy continued to look at the surrounding environment, and the guy who came out had already killed him. So what's next? Continue the fight? Shouldn't it? After a long time, the audience will have aesthetic fatigue. This is where Jimmy puts himself into the shoes of his boss. Although there was still a lot of noise outside, the fact that there were people who had already gone out proved this point. Jimmy didn't have to wait too long, and a small platform slowly descended from the top of the arena. "I go?" Jimmy subconsciously moved out of the way, and looked at the leather ring slowly appearing a little cutely. "After 6 months, I must buy him, it's so cute." "Go to hell. He's mine." Originally relying on his good looks and high strength, Jimmy has already attracted a wave of fans, but now, this sudden contrast of cuteness has gained Jimmy a large number of fans. Of course, this is not a stage, Jimmy is not a star, and these audiences are not pure fans. Their thoughts are more direct, all waiting for the 6 months to pass. This is also the rule of the Devil's Arena, newcomers must stay here for 6 months before being auctioned. And on the first day, Jimmy had a huge audience. I don't know if Jimmy should be happy or... Looking at the collar, Jimmy was also a little tangled for a while. To be honest, Jimmy really didn't want to take it, it was like a dog pen. If you bring it, it's really disgusting. But don't you? Jimmy felt that he might not be able to get out of this arena. Jimmy has now confirmed that he has not time traveled, and the underground audience is obviously demons, one by one, not to mention how ugly they are. In short, it has nothing to do with human aesthetics. Therefore, Jimmy already has a basic understanding of his current situation. Assuming this is a novel, then, many elements have appeared around me now. Mutants, then you can be sure there will be an apocalypse in the future. If it is a devil, then there must be hell here, there is hell, and the boss of hell is Satan. Then, combined with mutants, then this will be the world of Marvel. The most important thing is that this is an arena. Although the arena looks extremely bloody, Jimmy can see that the most important purpose of opening an arena here should not be to kill mutants but to make money. If it is to make money, what is the purpose? Who in hell loves money the most? To be able to open such a large arena without being troubled by GUE, this person must be very powerful. There is no doubt that it must be the son of Satan, the symbol of money Mammon. This is the territory of Country M, combined with mutants and demons, then there should be X-Men and Ghost Riders here. Combined with my own situation, this should also be a bridge in the movie. Jimmy is very sure of this. Jimmy knows exactly what he has become through time travel. Bone spurs plus self-healing factors, maybe these alone, Jimmy can't confirm yet. But add the Rocky Mountains, the red bathrobe, and Victor, and Jimmy was sure 3 years ago. It is precisely because of this that Jimmy knows that this is a movie scene. Then, going backwards, I am now in the hands of the devil. The boss in this arena is Mammon's subordinate. Mammon is the son of Satan, and Satan is now Mephisto. Then, one can draw a conclusion that they will not avenge those little devils by arresting themselves. The main reason for arresting themselves is to make money. And according to the stage effect just obtained, it should be able to make a lot of money. Thinking of this, Jimmy's waist straightened instantly. Hold your head up, chest out, buttocks up. Give me another style. To be honest, now Jimmy knew what he was going to face. Such a world is very simple, there is a Thanos, and there is the entire Avengers. As for why Jimmy knows that there will be an Avengers. Very simple, Magneto's illegitimate daughter Scarlet Witch is a member of the Avengers. Dormammu, blocked by Doctor Strange. Even Mephisto, the boss in Hell, is blocked by Ghost Knights. Although it was very difficult to block, the real enemy in front of him was Thanos. Jimmy really didn't want to fight for the 50.00% survival rate. If you want to deal with Thanos, you must get the Infinity Stones first, at least 3 first. Only in this way can Jimmy have a chance to fight Thanos 50-50. In the face of infinite gems, neither the energy nor the self-healing factor are useless. As for the bone spurs, they are just for jokes. However, even so, Jimmy was very happy. Jimmy felt as if he had broken a great achievement. The village chief of Novice Village is finally not Coulson and Iron Man. As for Infinity Stones, the Time Gem is in the Ancient One, and the Space Gem will appear in the Hydra in about 100 years. The power gem is in Guardians of the Galaxy, and the reality gem will appear in Thor's girlfriend. The Mind Stone will be brought to Earth by Loki's. The last soul gem. Forget it, it is enough to get 4 that can appear on the Earth first. Beating Thanos is like hitting a sun, forehead. It was Dante who was calling. After West assigned Jimmy to Dante, Dante was very concerned about this. When he thought things would develop as before, Dante actually heard Jimmy's voice. This was a bit beyond Dante's expectation. Under normal circumstances, there are only 2 situations for the following people. The first type is very cooperative, doing whatever you are asked to do. This kind of behavior belongs to those who have self-knowledge. The second type is those who refuse to cooperate and resist desperately. Dante is also very experienced in dealing with such people. Pull the gate and continue to release the magic wolf. Boil him like an eagle. He will always be tired and get down, and it will be fine to put him on when the time comes. In fact, Dante still likes the second type of person very much, because in that case, he can still leave a lot of viewers. Add some cohesion to the arena. But, it's the first time I've seen something like this. Change the style. Change your ghost. To be honest, this request is really not too much, facing this kind of person who can bring huge benefits to the arena. Dante will be easier to talk to. But, after thinking about it, Dante agreed to Jimmy's request, although Dante still doesn't know what Jimmy's name is. The leather ring that had been hanging down in front of Jimmy slowly rose up. Hey, that's right. Of course, Jimmy didn't say this, otherwise, even for the sake of face, he would have to suffer a little. As for whether he can break out, according to legend, Mephisto is no weaker than Ancient One and Odin. Let's not look for that excitement. What landed in front of Jimmy again was a beautiful spike pendant. Jimmy. You bloody bastard. Where the hell have you been? Did you agree to be inseparable and support each other? In a bar in a small town, Victor slammed a glass of beer on the table. He was still muttering something in his mouth. Hey man. This is my place, you know what I mean? At this time, a blonde-haired gangster came to Victor with his 2 younger brothers. One hand was placed on Victor's shoulder, and a small knife with a cold light was pressed against Jimmy's waist where no one else could see. Victor was sitting on the bar counter, and the owner of the bar was standing in front of Victor. This scene was naturally seen by the owner of the bar. Turning around silently, he put the cup he was wiping on the shelf. Without turning around, he just fiddled with his shelf full of wine. Go away, before I get angry. But is Victor to be trifled with? Jimmy, who has lived with Victor for 3 years, can say without hesitation that Victor is a guy who really dares to fight a tiger when he gets angry. These little gangsters obviously couldn't control Victor. In fact, these little gangsters collected protection fees only because of their strength. If they really met those strong people, they would not dare to collect any protection fees. But now, after Victor glanced at this little bastard, he retreated a little bit. However, it is okay to not charge protection fees, provided that there is a step down. Otherwise, for the sake of face, or for future livelihood. Even a punk can desperately show it to you. Hey, dude, you don't think much of me, do you? After waiting for a while, I found that Victor didn't seem to want to step down the steps for himself. The little bastard was obviously impatient. Back then, I was on this street. Before he finished speaking, the little gangster got up off the ground and appeared on a big pillar the next moment. The little bastard opened his mouth wide, and the usual simple breathing seemed to be a luxury at this moment. If you look carefully, you can see that the current little bastard, his feet have not touched the ground at all. I wanted to say something, but I couldn't say anything. Withdrawing his hand, spots of scarlet blood suddenly appeared in the air. Oh. Okay. With a gunshot, Victor's body staggered 2 steps forward under the powerful shock. Turning his head, he found that it was the owner of the bar. Monster. Get out of here. Faced with such a situation, Jimmy would probably leave as well. But can Victor do the same? This guy, the claws that had just been retracted stretched out again. Victor didn't care about those little gangsters who had run away and disappeared, and stared closely at the owner of the bar. Step by step, he walked towards the owner of the bar. If no one stopped him, Victor would really make a fuss here. Follow me. At this moment, a hand clapped Victor's shoulder. Go away. Victor's brows were tightened, and Victor really couldn't figure out why it was so troublesome outside. Not only is my brother lost, but there are so many troubles. I know where your brother is. A voice suddenly sounded from the bottom of Victor's heart. Victor's pupils shrank suddenly, subconsciously wanting to take this person down. However, Victor suddenly discovered that his body didn't listen to his words. What? Victor's heart is full of question marks. Follow me. The woman let go of her volume and walked outside. And Jimmy followed this woman and walked out step by step. Did you take my brother? Victor and the woman came to a deserted alley. When I feel that my body listens to my words again. Victor couldn't wait to ask the woman. No, my daughter also disappeared. My husband found out that this is a demon's stronghold. I think your brother is likely to be taken away just like my daughter. The woman said to Victor. Where is that gladiatorial arena? I'll take him away. Jimmy is an idiot, he will be taken away. In fact, there is no evidence at all for this woman to say these words. Credibility is basically equal to zero. However, Victor still believed it, and Victor could only believe it. No, you can't do this, buddy. With your current strength, you can't even beat my daughter. What are you going to do? Looking for a beating? The woman looked at Victor, shook her head and said. Victor's lips moved, but finally he didn't speak. Indeed, Victor is quite clear about Jimmy's strength. Even Jimmy was taken away, there was absolutely nothing he could do. At the very least, there is no way to break through. Bring this killing mat full of breath, but it is much better than the neck collar. A small gate in the arena was also open to Jimmy. Under the leadership of the two demons, Jimmy honestly came to where he should be. During this process, Jimmy didn't mean to resist at all. From the moment he put on this pendant, Jimmy knew that he probably couldn't run away. The way these demons restrain themselves should be inseparable from this pendant. Although he has a self-healing factor, Jimmy does not want to challenge the bottom line of the self-healing factor. It's good to be alive. The place I arrived at was a living room that looked resplendent and magnificent. Every corner in the living room felt particularly expensive just by looking at it. After the two demons who brought them here came here, they didn't follow in, so they consciously guarded the door. What should I say? Or should I do something? Jimmy's gaze didn't stay on the surrounding environment for too long. Although it looks good here, it certainly has nothing to do with me. Also, this guy is strong. It was a feeling that Jimmy felt dangerous just looking at. However, this does not mean that Jimmy is counseled. On the contrary, Jimmy now straightened his chest and raised his head, looking straight at the devil who hid his whole body in the black hood. Aren't you afraid of me? The voice of the black-robed demon was not as deep and hoarse as Jimmy imagined. On the contrary, it is no different from ordinary people. Not afraid. Interesting, you can make a request that is not excessive. Dante, who was hiding under the black hood, said to Jimmy. Jimmy. Don't worry, everyone who comes here will have such a choice. Seeing that Jimmy was silent, Dante added lightly. It wasn't until this time that Dante found a sense of familiarity. Does this include you too? I'm not human. Dante clearly heard Jimmy's routine, but Dante didn't care. Aren't you human? Forget it, it doesn't matter, can you give me a nice dress? Jimmy shrugged. Jimmy didn't ask too much. In fact, if you want to live better in such an environment, then you must work hard to improve your own value. Obtaining dazzling fashion is the first step to enhance your own value. As for what is delicious, Jimmy doesn't really care, there are still opportunities in the future. Okay. You're a smart guy. When Dante heard this, a satisfied smile appeared on his face hidden under the hood. Snapped. With a snap of her fingers, a devil girl with a pair of cute little horns on her forehead came to Jimmy with a tray. Give yourself a code name. Dante put the tray on the coffee table in front of him and pushed it in Jimmy's direction. Well, let's call it Wolverine. Jimmy hesitated when he heard this, and said that he still wanted such a name. There is no other reason, Jimmy just feels that Wolverine may be very popular in martial arts. Wolverine? Something to do with your mutant powers? Is that why you want nice clothes instead of defensive ones? Can I refuse to answer this? Jimmy doesn't really want to talk to this guy right now. Although I don't know how low the status of the people who were caught here is. However, Jimmy still wants to try it out, at most he will be beaten up, and no one will die. Moreover, it's not that Jimmy doesn't want to tell the devil in front of him. The reason why he doesn't speak is because Jimmy feels his body is sticky. Now, Jimmy feels that he needs to take a bath very urgently. Of course, beautiful lady, could you please send this Mr. Wolverine to where he should go? Of course, sir. Hearing this, the girl glanced at Jimmy, turned around and left the room. By the way, are you not afraid of me running away? Jimmy asked the girl leading the way with some doubts. The two demons that I brought myself in before, although very good, still have a little bit of fighting power. However, the girl in front really has no combat power at all. Of course not, Mr. Wolverine, you have to believe that before you hit me, you will be turned into a pile of ashes. The girl leading the way still walked forward without turning back, but the voice reached Jimmy's ears. Oh. When Jimmy heard this, he stopped talking. Now Jimmy has some awareness of his status, probably above slaves and below waiters. Soon, Jimmy came to the so-called place where he should be. Well, this is also a house, a very large house, which looks like an ordinary manor. However, his intuition told Jimmy that it was dangerous inside. The house is dangerous, and so are the people inside. Mr. Wolverine, I can only send you here. This is the clothes you want. This leather case is an extra gift from the owner, please. The girl sent the tray in front of Jimmy. In fact, if you don't think about the premise that you didn't come here voluntarily, you will feel like a nobleman. Thank you. Sorry to bother you. Jimmy took the tray with both hands and walked into the manor without hesitation. This demon is quite considerate, Jimmy thought in his heart as he walked halfway. During the 3 years in the mountains, it is impossible to have any barbershop, so it doesn't matter whether it's Jimmy or Victor. For hair, both of them have a laissez-faire attitude. Therefore, whether it is Jimmy or Victor, both of them have black and beautiful long hair with shawls. Well, it is worth mentioning that both of them have black hair. Walking into the house in the manor, Jimmy looked at the surrounding environment. From the outside, it seems that this is just a house, but there are many houses inside. As soon as you enter the door, you can see a room with an open door, which is the room closest to the door. Jimmy was also polite, and walked in directly. It can be seen that no one lives in this room, and there is even a thin layer of dust on the table. Then, this will be my room from now on. However, Jimmy didn't stay in this room for too long, and now Jimmy needs to take a bath. Walking out of the room, Jimmy knocked on the door opposite him. No more cigars. As soon as it rang, an impatient voice came from inside. I want to ask where to take a shower. Jimmy scratched his head, a little bewildered. Crack. With a soft bang, the door was opened, and the person who opened the door looked like a guy made of a large pile of stones. Newcomer. The voice is very deep, but it doesn't give people a very simple and honest feeling, but it has a sense of oppression. Correct. When Jimmy heard this, he didn't deny it, but shrugged, saying that he was indeed a newcomer. Although the big man looked strong and his voice was oppressive, Jimmy didn't feel any danger. Therefore, Jimmy can confirm that this big man cannot pose a danger to himself. The place to take a bath is over there, but I don't recommend you take a bath. Hearing the words, the big man shook his head, and while talking, he was wiping the blood on his body with a towel. Well, thank you. Jimmy heard the words, expressed his gratitude, and walked straight to the place pointed by the big man. Oh. What a kid who is not afraid of death. The big guy was clearly interested in what was going to happen next. So, I didn't go back to my room. Instead, he just leaned against the doorframe and watched quietly while wiping his body. This taste. The further he went in, the more bloody smell Jimmy felt. The doors of almost every room here were closed. Don't people here take a bath? Jimmy complained in his heart, but he was new here and didn't understand anything, so Jimmy still didn't have any intention of showing off. This is the basic quality of being a freshman in the previous life. It is basically Jimmy's only experience in being a human being. Of course, if he doesn't want to be a thorn, Jimmy should probably listen to the big guy. But, obviously, Jimmy would rather take a shower than get punched. Jimmy didn't like this slimy feeling. Worse than a fight. Although the room is big, it doesn't take too long to walk from the door to the bathing place. What is there? Standing at the door, Jimmy looked around vigilantly, but he didn't find any problems. Shaking his head helplessly, Jimmy just thought it was that guy scaring him, and didn't take it seriously, so he went straight into the toilet. It may be that Jimmy has been here for so long that Jimmy has forgotten the wisdom passed down from his ancestors. If you don't listen to the old man, you will suffer. Although the stone man is not very old, he is definitely Jimmy's senior here. Oh. As soon as the door was pushed open, there was a bang. Jimmy subconsciously turned his head, and an iron fork flew past Jimmy's ear. What? Seeing the woman who suddenly appeared in front of him holding a fork against his Adam's apple, Jimmy was completely stunned. Did no one tell you that this bathroom is covered by me? Only when the cold voice reached Jimmy's ears did Jimmy react. Then is there another place to take a bath? Jimmy said with some difficulty, although this is a tableware, but with enough force, it can easily penetrate his throat. Jimmy didn't think at all that the woman didn't have that kind of strength. Nothing. Hearing the woman's words, Jimmy fell silent. Look at my face, can you let me take a shower? After a long silence, Jimmy suddenly pulled his long hair to the side, revealing his delicate face. It looks clean, but, no, the woman glanced at Jimmy and nodded, but what she said made Jimmy very angry. What is quite clean? My good looks. That's what I've dreamed of all my life. Well then, you put down the fork, we two go out to solve it, I don't want to destroy the only bathroom. Jimmy gritted his teeth and said, "To be honest, Jimmy is really satisfied with his current face. I really can't say how good looking I was in my previous life. But the integration of soul and body in this life has led to the combination of the advantages of the East and the West. Of course, there are also shortcomings, but these have become much more perfect under the optimization of the mind. But today, the place that I am most proud of has been ignored like this. Really are." Jimmy wanted to hit someone very much, and Jimmy would not hide his thoughts, so Jimmy said it directly. "Now I only need to use a little force to get rid of you. Why do I have to go out with you to get rid of you?" The woman tilted her head. "You can try it." Jimmy's right hand held the woman's hand, driving the woman's hand forward, and a wisp of scarlet flowed down Jimmy's neck. "Hiss, it still hurts." Jimmy's face twitched, but considering that there was a girl in front of him, he still gritted his teeth and didn't react too much. This time Jimmy was sure that his Adam's apple had definitely been cut. So Jimmy let go, and the woman put the iron fork aside. "Looking back, I found that Jimmy's wound had healed. Your self-healing ability is much stronger than your face." The woman nodded slightly, expressing her approval of Jimmy's strength. "Actually, I would rather you praise my face. I need the right to use this bathroom, woman." Jimmy shrugged, but the next moment Jimmy was back on his feet. "This is called, do not forget the original intention, forge ahead. Only based on the ability you have shown now, you are not worthy of the right to use it. So, come out and practice alone." Jimmy didn't talk nonsense, hugged his clothes, and walked outside. First he went back to his room and put down his clothes, but it was at this time that Jimmy suddenly discovered that there was still a key on the table. It's really a sweet arena. Locking his own door, Jimmy came outside the house. The space of this manor is very large. After Jimmy came out, Jimmy realized that not only the beautiful but domineering woman came out, but even the surrounding windows were covered with faces. Looking at it at a glance, it is called a colorful and strange shape. To be honest, among the mutants, there are really few who look like normal people. You're not a woman, so why are you hypocritical? My name is Logan, nicknamed Wolverine. Jimmy didn't pay attention to this woman. To be honest, apart from being beautiful, this woman has no advantages. Especially the mouth, it stinks. My name is Mel. Mel also shook his head helplessly when he heard the words, but he still entered the fighting state. In order to defend the right to use the bathroom, Mel has experienced this kind of battle many times. As soon as he got into position, Jimmy suddenly found that the woman in front of him disappeared. What? The alarm in his heart rose sharply, and before his brain could respond, his body squatted down first. Almost in the next instant, Jimmy felt a gust of wind blowing over his head. Without hesitation, he grabbed the soil on the ground, and suddenly, Jimmy's body was filled with a mist of soil. Throw sand. Street Fighter's unique sand throwing technique, 360 degrees without dead ends. His vision was suddenly obstructed, but Mel didn't panic at all and closed his eyes calmly. At this time, Jimmy also noticed Mel's existence for the first time. Although I was wondering why Mel didn't dodge or dodge. However, Jimmy still threw an elbow. Oh. This is the sonic boom caused by the high-speed movement of the body. Jimmy didn't think that this blow of his would kill Mel. It's impossible for Mel to gain such a position in such a circle without any ability at all. Humph. With a muffled grunt, Mel took 2 steps back, with a little surprise on his face. This guy is so explosive. Mel's mutant ability is abnormal, energy absorption, energy control, and teleportation. Especially energy absorption, not only very useful in combat. It can even slow down one's own aging, so as to achieve longevity. Therefore, the energy generated by the elbow strike just now was completely absorbed by Mel. However, energy absorption is not omnipotent, when the absorbed energy exceeds the limit that Mel can absorb. Then, Mel will also suffer real damage. However, energy control allows Mel to quickly use the energy in his body according to his own ideas. Teleport on collocation. This is the reason why Mel was able to achieve such a high status in this manner. Can fight, resist and move. Energy absorption? Jimmy's face became serious. This kind of ability is not only disgusting, but also disgusting. The thought moved slightly. The thought energy in the body began to flow according to a specific trajectory, and a little golden light began to appear on Jimmy's body. Domineering armor. It doesn't increase the attack power, nor does it increase the defense power, but it can keep Jimmy from falling to the ground no matter how he is beaten. The golden light is shining, and the golden light is even more prosperous on the hands. Heavy punch. The next moment, Jimmy appeared in front of Mel. Instant step. Shunpo is not teleportation, but a fast-moving footwork. Although it doesn't seem as convenient as teleportation, but when the speed reaches a certain level, it is similar. Both have their own advantages and disadvantages. Teleportation can ignore attacks, but Shunpo can increase inertia, thereby achieving the effect of increasing attack power. Therefore, Jimmy is actually more inclined to Shunpo. A punch, a simple punch, but it is also Wu Ji's most commonly used move. The characteristic is that it is fast and painful. What? After the initial fight, the two of them more or less understood each other's strength. Therefore, Mel will not be unable to react. Drinking violently almost at the same time, the two of them punched each other hard, and they retreated at the same time. It's not that Mel doesn't want to use energy absorption, it's just that the energy that Mel can absorb has reached saturation. What Mel needs now is output. Mel himself doesn't like to stand still and be beaten, although Mel can absorb energy better that way. However, Mel prefers to absorb in battle. The figure disappeared in an instant, but Jimmy hit the seemingly empty air behind him with an elbow. The elbow just came out, and Mel's figure had appeared behind Jimmy. Exactly the line of travel of the elbow. What? As the saying goes, the tip of a needle meets the wheat. The two were surprisingly similar in both their personalities and fighting habits. That's called a punch to the flesh. Every step is startling. However, Jimmy still kept his hand, otherwise, Jimmy wouldn't be so stupid to fight with someone recklessly. If it wasn't for the fact that he was new here and didn't know what the rules are here, Jimmy would have released his bone claws when he bumped his fist for the first time. Separated again, Jimmy and Mel stopped and glanced at the sky in unison. When Jimmy first entered the manor, the sky was still a little dark, but now it is already bright. You don't need to think about it, you can know that you will definitely not be able to rest at night. In other words, this battle can no longer continue. In fact, it stands to reason that both of them are high explosive types, and it was impossible to continue the battle for such a long time. However, while the two have a high explosion, they have another thing in common, that is, they have a strong battery life. Needless to say, absorbing energy is an ability that can be perfectly supplemented in battle, and Jimmy has obtained a strong endurance by relying on the self-healing factor. Wu Ji's moves did not consume as much Nian Qi as expected. However, every move and style of Wu Ji has a lot of damage to the body. However, whether it is a hidden injury or an obvious injury, Jimmy has never cared about it. Therefore, while the two have a high explosion rate, they also have a desperate battery life. Come on. I need a break. Jimmy looked at Mel in front of him a little out of breath. Jimmy really didn't want to fight anymore. It doesn't make sense at all. If you give up now, the fight can end at any time. Mel looked at Jimmy in front of him seriously and said. Mel is also a little tired now, and this is also the first time Mel has met an opponent. Before that, Mel had always thought that only his father could defeat him. As for being caught here by the devil, Mel doesn't think that a sneak attack can be regarded as a manifestation of strength. Drink Tui. Pooing disdainfully, Jimmy took a deep breath, and the next moment, his figure appeared in front of Mel again. It was still a punch, and Mel easily received it, but the matter is not over yet. Seeing that Mel's fist and Jimmy collided again, Mel was surprised to find that Jimmy didn't retreat, but continued to rush towards him. What? Mel was stunned. Didn't the impact force work on this person? In fact, this is the function of the Overlord body armor. Before that, Jimmy always felt that Mel was a girl after all, and he was willing to save face for the other party. But I didn't expect it to be consumed. Jimmy cares more about his plans than women. He punched out, and seeing Mel was repelled, Jimmy continued to follow. Gale combo. This set of combos is not unpleasant. The speed of the Gale combo is naturally as fast as the Gale. This is not over yet. Since he wants to end this meaningless battle, Jimmy must ensure that Mel completely loses his fighting power. Stretch your hands forward and pull them down. Knee. Jimmy's eyes narrowed slightly, and he could feel a different touch. His knee strike was blocked. However, Mel still floated into the air under the effect of Jimmy's knee strike. Thunder Feet. This is the first time Jimmy has used this kind of skill that consumes a lot of energy. The blue thunder kicked Mel hard on Jimmy's right foot. What? With a scream, Mel's figure fell fiercely towards the open space in the distance. Seeing this, Jimmy gathered strength under his feet, took off suddenly, and punched Mel. Strong punch. What? Mel, who was lying on the ground, didn't even have time to stand up. He pushed his hands forward, and a translucent energy shield appeared in front of Mel. However, how could this hastily raised energy barrier block Jimmy's punch? Crack. This is the sound of the energy barrier shattering. At this moment, the outcome has been decided. I'm asking you again. Am I handsome or not? Jimmy looked down at Mel, and asked seriously. This is an important question, and Jimmy takes it seriously. This is even more important than Mel's finger on his heart, which is a little hot because of the energy that is ready to go. Of course, Jimmy is not without any support. Two bone spurs pierced into the ground on both sides, and the one in the middle bypassed the holster around Mel's neck and arrived at the deadliest place. Nausea. Not to be outdone, Mel replied that Mel is not afraid of Jimmy now. But Mel admits he lost. When Jimmy's bone claws stretched out, Mel knew that he had lost. It wasn't that he was afraid of Jimmy's bone claws, but Mel knew that if Jimmy used this pair of bone spurs in the first fist bump, although he wouldn't be able to directly defeat him. However, being pressed and beaten is certain. Energy absorption is not afraid of any weapons, this is a very comprehensive ability. But Mel knew from the previous fights that his energy absorption had reached saturation. At this moment, Mel completely took back the contempt he had had for Jimmy. Okay, can I take a shower? Jimmy said helplessly, and at the same time let go of Mel. Competing with a girl is really boring, can. Mel gritted his teeth and said, his pretty face was flushed red. But Mel is a proud girl. Although she can't accept her failure, Mel can't accept her backlash. I will defeat you, convinced. Patting the dust on the clothes, Mel looked at Jimmy in front of him and said coldly. Okay, let's talk after we survive. Jimmy clapped his hands, looked around, and said to Mel helplessly. Jimmy wanted very much to survive in a place like this. This is the quest for life of a man who has died once. Even washing is a means for Jimmy to improve his own value. Hey. Am I handsome? I looked around, only to find that the mutants around were still watching. Jimmy immediately asked everyone. In fact, Jimmy still cares about this question very much. I really care about it. Handsome. Everyone is very face-saving. Of course, Jimmy's own conditions are also quite good. At the very least, it can be the face value of men here. Only in this estate. So, maybe your eyes are not working well. Hearing the shouts around him, Jimmy slowly closed his eyes at a 45-degree angle, and said to Mel after being intoxicated for a while. Cut. Are you comparing with them? Mel glanced at Jimmy, and slowly disappeared from Jimmy's sight. At this time, the door of the house was already full of people, but when Mel approached, he still consciously gave way to a path. Obviously, Mel's popularity is still quite good. Is she so popular here? Jimmy came to the stone man he had seen before, and asked the stone man. Of course, she is strong and doesn't put on airs. Apart from being a bit clean, she has no shortcomings. That's pretty good. Okay, let's go to bed early. Hearing this, Jimmy patted the stone man on the shoulder and walked into the bathroom. It took about half an hour to finish washing. Jimmy walked into his bedroom wearing the clothes he got from the arena. Without further ado, Jimmy fell asleep directly. In fact, Jimmy who just woke up is not sleepy at all, but even if he is not sleepy, Jimmy still needs to rest. Otherwise, it might be a rough night. At about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Jimmy woke up on time. Coming to a new environment, Jimmy will naturally adjust his plan. It's impossible not to rest, but you can't rest all the time. Cultivation is like sailing against the current, if you don't advance, you will retreat. Although everything looks good here, and the service is very attentive, but Jimmy doesn't want to stay here forever. What Jimmy wants is not to do what he doesn't want to do. And here, it is obvious that Jimmy's request cannot be met. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, Jimmy began to practice mindfulness. About 4 hours later, there was a knock on Jimmy's door. Slowly opening his eyes, Jimmy let out a sigh of relief. Although Nian Qi is still growing, Jimmy can feel that he is only one step away from the next level. Now, all it takes is a chipper. Opening the door and walking out, Jimmy found that everyone seemed to have come out. In the place with the largest space in this house, the living room. 3 tables were filled with a group of people. It was full, except that there was no one sitting on either side of Mel. Touching his nose in embarrassment, Jimmy came to Mel's side. Is anyone here? No, Mel's voice was cold and his face was serious. In fact, speaking now, everyone present looked very serious. Obviously everyone knows that this evening is going to be tough. Oh. Jimmy responded, and sat on Mel's left without any awareness. Mel looked up at Jimmy, but didn't speak. There was a table full of food on the table, which looked delicious, but none of the people did it. Can I eat? Jimmy looked at the people around him in a daze, his hands holding the knife and fork stayed in the air, looking a little at a loss. Eat. Mel said something lightly, and everyone started to do it almost at the same time. Before Jimmy could react, there was a lot of food on the table. To Jimmy's surprise, Mel ate so fast. It can be seen that Mel is full, but she is still eating hard. The distorted expression on his face is daunting. Jimmy glanced around the table, and reluctantly stuffed something that looked like food into his mouth. Vomit. It's so unpalatable. This was the most genuine reaction from Jimmy's heart, but Jimmy could feel a wave of heat rising from his stomach and flowing to his whole body. There is no doubt that although such food is unpalatable, it can greatly replenish energy. Feeling almost done, Jimmy stopped. This food is really unpalatable. Looking at Mel beside him, Jimmy showed a sympathetic look on his face. Now almost everyone is full, but Mel is still eating, even though her face has been twisted to the extreme. Jimmy can roughly guess what Mel will do next. It should be absorbing energy, right? However, even if Mel ate all the food on the table, it was impossible for him to absorb the saturated state. Therefore, a cloud of thoughts quickly condensed in Jimmy's hands, and then unreservedly pressed on the unprepared Mel. Nyen Kibo. This is a skill that belongs to Qigong masters, but it is also universal. What are you doing? Don't get me wrong, I just don't want to see your keys back later. Jimmy said something silently, walked to the side sofa and sat down. They are all poor people, so please help if you can. Every newcomer needs to defeat 3 hell creatures. Mel sat beside Jimmy with 2 glasses of water. Okay. Jimmy looked at Mel in astonishment. Jimmy really didn't expect that Mel would take the initiative to talk to him. I don't want to owe favors. Mel shrugged and handed a glass of water to Jimmy. You're welcome. When Jimmy heard this, he took the water from Mel with a smile on his face. After challenging the 3 hell creatures, you will start fighting other mutants until you die or sold 6 months later. How many months have you been here? Hearing this, Jimmy raised his eyebrows slightly and asked Mel. 3 months. Mel said softly, it's coming soon. Yes, simple dialogue, both of them fell into silence. This damn place. Live. Mel's glass tilted slightly toward Jimmy. Live. Jimmy also clinked glasses with Mel with a smile on his face. After eating, everyone went back to their rooms. Started preparing for the battle. Jimmy didn't know what he was going to do next, and he didn't even know what kind of enemy he was going to face. However, Jimmy is still actively preparing. There was a huge floor-to-ceiling mirror in the room, and Jimmy began to organize his clothes. This is a suit like a boxing suit, loose and fit. Black background and white border, with a hood, to cover the body tightly. Inside, there is a black tights, the shoes are Gao Bang's boots, and the black trouser legs are stuffed into the shoes. Fair face, tall and straight figure. It made Jimmy look very clean and neat. In fact, this man is very handsome if he can do this. Tie the shawl hair into a ponytail, and the pre-war preparations are basically done. There was even a pair of black gloves with fingerless fingers on the tray. This time, at least it seemed that Jimmy was fully equipped. Before playing, he practiced again twice. Dong dong dong. The door rang, and Jimmy took 2 steps forward to open the door, but what he saw was a beautiful face. Mr. Wolverine, this way please. When the girl saw Jimmy, her eyes were slightly dazed, and then she lowered her head. Is this the Wolverine who has been fired to 5,000 million magic coins? Really handsome. Good. Hearing this, Jimmy took a deep breath and stepped out to follow. Now, there is no one in the manor. What about them? Why are they gone? Are we going to fight together? Jimmy asked with some doubts. There is not only one arena here, Mr. Wolverine's arena belongs to newcomers. The voice of the devil girl is very nice, and if you listen carefully, you can hear the shyness of the girl. This is also a benefit of good looks, right? When Jimmy heard this, he immediately reacted. This is also reasonable. Since the place is for money, there will naturally be corresponding arrangements. Dividing different areas can naturally greatly enhance the viewing experience. The tickets here must not be cheap, right? Talking and laughing, Jimmy came to his own arena. From the backstage to the ring, the big iron gate behind him made a rumbling sound. Jimmy has no way out. Throwing his boxing suit aside, revealing the tights inside. A baggy boxer is still not suitable for fighting, although it is convenient for movement. However, it is still not as comfortable as the battlesuit when fighting. The tight black battlesuit perfectly reflected Jimmy's figure. Walking on the illuminated ring, Jimmy heard the shouts from below. With a soft sigh, Jimmy suddenly wanted a cigar. Of course, such a thought is just a flash in my mind. After finally getting rid of nicotine, Jimmy didn't want to touch that thing again. It is not good for the body at all. Boom. The sound of the iron door being pulled open sounded, and Jimmy asked the reputation. His face suddenly turned extremely pale. This is a creature that looks like a spider, and it is gray in color as a whole. He is rather bulky, about half the height of Jimmy. What? A pair of bone claws suddenly appeared in the air, swinging back slightly. Jimmy shouted demonstratively at the big spider. But if you listen carefully, you can easily hear the harshness in Jimmy's voice. Without him, Jimmy's voice is trembling slightly now. Since childhood, Jimmy has been particularly afraid of bugs. Jimmy in this life is afraid that Jimmy doesn't know, but Jimmy in his previous life was afraid of bugs to the bone. Especially this spider that has been magnified by an unknown number of times. Isn't he afraid of bugs? I think it's possible that this cave-dwelling demon isn't much stronger than the magic wolf, but you see, he's trembling. But it's so cute. Jimmy's reaction was watched by the devil audience below, and they discussed it one after another. And on the ring. This cave-dwelling demon didn't have much intelligence, but he could hear the fear in Jimmy's voice. The 8 long legs moved quickly, moving towards Jimmy quickly. In just a moment, the caveman was about to come to Jimmy's side. A pair of poisonous claws poked forward, fiercely rushing towards Jimmy. Seeing this, Jimmy's face changed drastically, his steps reversed, and his figure instantly appeared on the side. Instant step. This is the first time Jimmy used Shunpo to escape after he came to this world. So far, the effect is quite good. The caveman's momentum was very strong, and he directly smashed a small hole in the ring. When he came to a place about 3 meters away from the cave demon, a cloud of thought energy condensed in Jimmy's hands. Under Jimmy's control, the golden Nian Qi began to flicker with electric arcs. This is a combination of Thunder Kick and Nian Qi Wave, which can be said to be original. Drink. With a loud shout, Jimmy threw it out. This time, nearly half of Jimmy's energy was used up. Jimmy really made up his mind. Even if you die here, don't touch this guy's body. SSSSSSSSSSSSS, a wave of thought energy in the version of thunder slammed on the cave demon's body, causing it to scream, and at the same time, the place where it was hit was also torn apart by electricity. However, cave-dwelling demons are not vegetarians either, and their huge bodies are overly sensitive. Turning around, before Jimmy could react, a green spider web completely enveloped Jimmy inside. Poisonous. Jimmy's face suddenly changed, and Jimmy could clearly feel that his control over his body was rapidly declining.